Perhaps we need some outside universal threat to make us recognize this common bound. I occasionally think how quickly our differences worldwide would vanish if we were facing an alien threat from outside this world.
Good evening and welcome to the Friday night edition of Spaced Out Radio Tonight. My name is Dave Scott. Always appreciate earning your listening ears wherever you are on this beautiful planet we call Earth. One of the best guys in ufology and on TikTok, Dan Warren, is here from the Fifth Pillar of Emphasis to talk about all the latest UFO news and where we're going, where we've been. You know, it's a 5 W's type of show tonight. The best part about it, we got Dan, we got me, and we got all of you. We have Race Fan in the gold medal position, SJ with a silver, Tim Mothman and his goatee with a bronze medal tonight, Robert Lamoth, Bar Madison, and Trucker Andrew. How you doing? Karen in the Woo Train, Dino Bravo, Brown Dwarf, Puck Elf is here. Puck Elf will be signing autographs after the show. Line up to the left of the studio, if you don't mind, to the left of the studio. Laura Lobbs, Freya Baby, welcome to SOR Chat. Stephanie Kenny Blankenship, Pat Leal, David Hayworth, how are you? Desert Rat, nice to see you, my man. And Kathy Evans, always a pleasure. Corey, what's happening tonight, my man? Thank you for coming on in as we continue on with our roll call. Cosmic Joe, thank you for coming on in. And there's T-Bone, my man. How you doing? The guy lives in British Columbia's former capital. Have you figured out that one yet? Figure that one out. That's where he is. Moving on down, we have Eternity Eternal. And Luscious Jules is here. Good to see you, Jules. Scrolling on down, and my eyes are blurry tonight. My son and I were playing hockey earlier tonight again, and he caught me right in the eye again, the little jerk. Yeah, hit me right in the same eye. My eye is like blurry. It's blurry. I'm proud of him, though. Very proud. Human Carl is here. Not to be misconstrued with Alien Carl. Human Carl is a great, great veteran of the United States Air Force. Thank you for your service, Human Carl. And Mama Catherine, mwah! I love you, my dear. I hope you're doing very, very well. Continuing on here, we have Majdi, Noble Patrick, Super Crazy. And who else is next? And scrolling on down. Digger Dog, how you doing, my man? And who's next? Thomas Rock, number 73 in your program, starting in goal tonight from Stockholm, Sweden. Lars Jansson. He's got a 2.23 goals against average. He's doing really well this year. He's up for the Vezina. Rafin, how you doing? Rafin will be signing autographs after the show as well. Light up to the right of the studio, if you don't mind. To the right of the studio. Continuing on here. Hi, aloha, Dave. Buckethead, the Soothsayer. Mad Monk, JSCO. Good to see you all. And who's hiding on Facebook? It's Susan Lawrence, the pride of Indiana. Android, how you doing? Christine Lynn, Dragonfly. Nice to see you both. Deborah Rooney, thank you for kicking off this super chat tonight. It's a wonderful way to support what we do on this show on a nightly basis. Thank you for your love, Deb. Let's get the radio side going. Hello and welcome to the radio and podcast side of Spaced Out Radio tonight. My name is Dave Scott. We always appreciate you tuning in. Tonight we have Dan Warren from the TikTok channel, Fifth Pillar of Emphasis. We're going to be talking UFOs all night long. And Bill WD-40 is officially lubing us up for tonight's show because we went into last night's show fully rigid because Bill wasn't there. So he's lubing up double time tonight as we speak, because you always want to go into a show nice and smooth. Always got to be smooth. All right, SJ, good to see you. And who's next on our list here? Juliana McGill, how are you? And let's see here. Les Paul Holland, Chris, big dash in between. Teen, how are you? We got to get ready to go here. Millennium, my man, thanks for coming on in. And IXOXI, thank you for joining us. Do me a favor, everybody. It's time to throw those horns up. Let's rock. From the mountains of central British Columbia to you listening around the world, this, my friends, is Spaced Out Radio. I am your host, Dave Scott, sitting in the captain's chair of SOR headquarters. We welcome you to tonight's show on our terrestrial affiliates around North America, digitally on Odyssey Radio, TalkStream Live, and KPNL. All of our archives are free. Join us at youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio. Do old Davey the favor, hit that subscribe button. You can follow us on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio, Instagram at Spaced Out Radio Show, and on Patreon in the Space Travelers Club. Our website, spacedoutradio.com, once again. And tonight's show is brought to you by Chive Charities. Help make the world 10% happier by visiting Chive Charities today. You can find them on our website. We got a power show of fun tonight. One of the best guys in ufology, Dan Warren, joins us from the TikTok channel, Fifth Pillar of Emphasis. Why can I not say that word? Emphasis. There we go. I finally got it. Then in hour number 3, Steve Stockton will be here with Among the Missing. Follow that up by Nicole Sackage, filling in for Courtney Marcassani on UFO Court. Why? Courtney is on assignment this weekend. Let's get right to it. Dan Warren has one of the best and top-rated TikTok channels when it comes to UFOs. It's called the Fifth Pillar of Emphasis. He has millions of views along with hundreds of thousands of subscribers, and they all rely on Dan to literally bring them the latest and daily news regarding the UFO story. He's a busy man. Why? Well, because he's a family man first. Second comes his UFO story, and you know what? He's become one of the most trusted voices when it comes to putting out the updates on the UFO world. Dan Warren, it's been a while since we had you on Spaced Out Radio, but I'm so glad to have you back on the show. How you been doing, my friend?
I've been doing pretty good. I've been busy. I've been happy about things going on. I've been disappointed and bummed about some of the things going on, but overall, it's been an enjoyable time to be involved with the UFO community.
It is a lot of fun. And Dan, for people who may not know your channel, I remember when you started, you had about, when I started following you, I think you were just in the single thousands of followers on TikTok. Now you've got hundreds of thousands of people relying on you for the latest in UFO news. And I think that needs to be congratulated, because the UFO story in building, whether it's on YouTube, TikTok, or any social media program, the YouTube or the UFO topic is very hard to build. And yet you've been one who's had success with it.
Well, if you were one of the first single-digit thousands of people that started following me on TikTok, then I want to thank you, because those videos, going back and look at them, were not easy to watch. Like I have learned a lot over the course of making. I think I'm over 1,000 short videos now that I've got on my TikTok channel. But yeah, it's been what I'm calling an organic growth as far as how I've been able to grow a following. And I think a lot of what I do is not exaggerate. I try to just present information that seems relevant to the news of the day. And I think people like that I'm not making wild claims or trying to predict the future. I'm not that guy for that. I'm just going to try to provide reliable information that you can go back to later and refer back to if an event occurs that has a relationship to something that has occurred in the past as far as the UFO news cycle goes.
Dan, how have you decided to stay relatively neutral with this story. So many people have taken sides. So many people are on the pro disclosure side, the pro Elizondo side, the pro UFO side, but hate the government side. Then there's the skeptic side, and then the non-believer side. Yet you stay right down the middle. You don't sway either way. It's like you don't give your political affiliation on UFOs where you stand. You just tell the news like a good old Walter Cronkite type of style. And I mean that as a compliment. Why do you do it that way when so many others have shown their true colors?
I have a healthy built-in dose of I probably don't know the truth associated with my outlook on this topic. Like I think that I could be wrong about anything that I say. That's why I don't feel confident enough to make an assertion that I'm right about this. This is what it is, because in the back of my mind, I've got a doubting Thomas back there that says, but what if you're wrong? And most everything that I report on, I think I could be wrong about the whole entire UFO subject. What if I'm potentially wrong and there's a prosaic explanation for all of it? I don't want to stick my neck out so far without what I consider proof to me. When I get that proof, I'll let you know. I'll let everyone know. But at this point, I don't have the proof that without a shadow of a doubt lets me make an assertion that this is what's happening. This is true. This is the facts that we're facing.
Your microphone is getting a little bit choppy on us. I don't know if you can adjust that a little bit or not, but Dan, I love the way you are unbiased with it, and you're just telling it as the news comes out regarding everything. I think we need more of that in the UFO world, because we're seeing a lot of bias happen. We're seeing a lot of bias podcasting, a lot of bias YouTube channels, and people just need the straight goods. When it comes down to it, our job, whether we're journalists, citizen journalists, podcasters, or whatever we want to be, we have to be able to tell the full story, not just the snippets we want people to know. What has been the reaction from your audience on the way you call things? Do they ever come at you and say, hey, why are you supporting this? Or why don't you talk about that?
The thing that I always try to bring to my videos, and I apologize for the audio, the next time we get a break, I'm going to run and grab a different set of earbuds, if you don't mind, and that's my go-to change out. But to answer your question, what I try to do is provide context, not just here's what's happening today and you should pay attention to it, but I try to look for historical references that would be relevant to why is this information that's coming out today important. So I try to get at least 3 pieces of data. So what I would call allow people to triangulate their thoughts on what's happening in this moment and what led to this, and then what that could potentially mean going forward. That's what I'm trying to do. I think people appreciate that because it's not just a super small sliver of information. It's a broader aperture of what's going on.
It is a big story, and it's a story that seems to be getting more push from us. And we've seen how the aggressiveness of everything kind of runs around. Dan, just so our audience knows, on the radio side, he's just stepped away for a moment to get new earbuds, so that way we can get him a little bit clearer on audio. But this is a subject that we see a lot of people gaining interest in. There are new people, celebrity people, sports people who are really getting into the UFO talk. I mean, Joe Rogan never used to talk UFOs on his podcast, and he's had some of the biggest guests on there for his millions upon millions of listeners. And that's a good thing for ufology. The more we could bring attention to the subject, I think it's better than what it was before, when it was just a fringe type of group. Even though we still are a fringe topic, we have to be able to keep the news run going. And the one thing that ufology, we criticize it a lot, but the one thing people in ufology is they are extremely loyal to the subject. You can't take that away from people, which is the loyalty to the subject. And though that loyalty in what they are doing is really putting high quality pressure on the people in the know. on what they are doing. They need that pressure. They need to know that we, even though we're a small community, we are a vocal community when it comes to UFOs. And, that is something that we need to continue to fight on as we go forward. Why? Because that pressure will eventually lead to, hopefully, the truth about what's going on. That's what we're here for. We want that truth. And the minute that people who have a very, very powerful nose in smelling the BS that may come from the government sometimes on this, they know when they're having the wool pulled over their eyes. They know it, and they go at it very hard. Dan rejoins us here, and thank you. Sorry about the audio there, Dan, but glad to have you back here.
I'm just hoping that this audio is a little bit better.
It's about the same, but we're going to continue on.
No.
We're going to continue
Okay.
on. That's okay. That's okay. We got a job to do, which is interviewing you tonight. And Dan, talking about your TikTok channel, I had mentioned that many people here had come into your channel. You never take a side. Why do people trust your voice, in your opinion?
I feel like people trust my voice because I'm trying to stay as close to the facts as I can. Whenever I report on something, I try to provide what I call the receipts. I'm not giving you a lot of opinion and speculation. And whenever I do speculate, I always make sure to lead in with, here comes some speculation. This is my opinion, so that I don't make a statement that is just a thought experiment that I'm going through. I want people to know that. So I'm just trying to be as honest and forthright as I can with my audience so that I can earn their respect over time, instead of trying to say something that would be could potentially go more viral if I say it. I'm not particularly interested in that. I don't want to risk my reputation for a few clicks and views, when I think the truth is more entertaining and interesting than anything that I'll ever be able to make up.
The people in ufology, as I was just saying, are extremely passionate about the subject, Dan. You're one of them. I'm one of them. We have thousands of people out there just in North America alone who love this subject, who crave the news, who crave the truth about what's going on. But there's also the critics and the skeptics out there that really seem to have a very loud voice as well. Do you think that the UFO community is not only the strength of trying to get the disclosure movement going, but also its own worst enemy, because we don't seem to buy anything anymore on what could potentially be truth?
So when it comes to skeptics in particular, I think there's a place for them in the community. I think we have to have them. That everybody's playing a particular role. There are people that are all in on one side of the conversation, and then they're making claims, they're making arguments, and then there's the bunkers, there's the skeptics that are out there that are going to take those claims and put them through a test, and they're going to try to verify if they're legitimate claims or not. And that's going to basically make our environment healthier. I kind of look at debunkers and skeptics as the sharks of the UFO food chain. They're going to pick off any of the weak arguments, any of the anomalous, for lack of a better term, arguments and claims that are out there, and put them to the test and let everybody know about it. But you're right, we are our own worst enemy. There's a lot of infighting that goes on in this community, but it's just like that in every other community as well, Dave. I don't know if you have a NFL, or not NFL, NHL community that you follow, but if you disagree with someone's opinion on their favorite hockey team, they're going to let you know it. They're going to tell you where you're wrong about how it, and it's brutal. I live in the Southeast United States. College football is king. If you don't think the University of Tennessee is the best at everything, then you've got a fight on your hands in the state that I live in, man. Like, it's tough everywhere, and we're no different than that. One thing I always like to think about the UFO community is we are all really a big, unique family, and you fight the most with those that you love the most. So it's not a shock to me at all that human nature's crept into the UFO community, and it's making it difficult, just like any relationship that you have with someone outside of yourself. they're not going to agree with you 100% of the time. So I think it's all to be expected. We are our own worst enemy, but that's just, I mean, we're trying to, as a species, wipe ourselves off the face of the earth with nukes. So that's just the way we are, unfortunately.
I'm snickering here because you are so right on that point. I remember, well, this is in the infancy of chat rooms and everything, where there were a lot more blogs than people doing it on social media. And one time I had this guy arguing with me in a chat room about a certain story. It was something to do with the Vancouver Canucks at that point. And he's arguing with me, but he didn't know that I was a journalist covering the Canucks. And so finally he asked the ultimate question, which they already knew. Well, how the blank would you know? So I said, I remember typing in, look, idiot, I broke the story. I think I would know. And he was like, oh, but you're right. It's the passion and the love, because whether it's a sports team or whether it's UFOs, people are passionate about what they love. And when you make an emotional investment in this, every word that Lou Elizondo says, or David Grush says, or Dr. Sean Kirkpatrick, or Tim Burchett, or anybody talking about this subject, you are on it like glue. And we see it daily on Twitter. And no matter what, I mean, somebody could make the most minute spelling error on a word, and they are going to get absolutely torn to shreds over it, Dan.
Oh yeah, I'm Southern, so by law, I'm required to mispronounce every 15th word I speak. So I get heckled because of my videos. I'll mispronounce a word. I say nukes because I cannot say nuclear properly. I just have to change the way that I speak because of the abilities that I have. But yeah, they will pick things apart. And yet again, I've when I first started TikTok, making TikTok videos, I was putting them out to an audience that I would consider less educated on the UFO topic than Twitter. It took me months to build up the courage before I would put anything on Twitter because I knew that it was going to be scrutinized. I consider TikTok basically my ability to reach outside of the echo chamber and talk to people that could potentially be interested in it. When I post my videos on Twitter, I kind of consider it a peer review process now because everyone on UFO Twitter, an amazing part of the UFO community is how well educated so many people are. Not just the people that are making the content, but anyone that's interested in this, that has been interested in this for so long, they have a knowledge base within them that is on par with mine, probably exceeding mine. And I'll just meet people when I've gone to Washington and I've shook their hand and never heard of them in my life, and they just are a wealth of information. So that's something that's kind of unique about our community is the level of education that the advocates have in this topic. It's really amazing, to be honest.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, and they know every name, every word, everything. As a host or as a channel like you have, we have to know a little about a lot. These people, they're so focused on the subject that whether you agree with them or not, they're coming with a fight on their hands like a lawyer. They are just so educated. I want to ask you though, because there is a little bit of politics being played with TikTok right now. You have amassed hundreds of thousands of subscribers on TikTok, yet there are the threats by the US government that they may ban TikTok in the United States. How would that affect you in what you do? Are you doing it more on other social media platforms just to be safe to carry over those followers?
At first, I wasn't because I didn't think I would have to, but then I realized that the benefit of short form videos that I make that are under 10 minutes typically is that they can be posted directly to any social media platform that is available to me. So after a while, I did start an Instagram account, and it eventually blew up and now has over 60,000 followers on it. Twitter, I'm up to 22,000 followers, and my YouTube channel is lagging a little bit. But other than that, like I do have I hate to say fan base. I have a UFO family on different social media platforms. So I'm not so dependent on people allowing me to have a voice just on TikTok. It's my biggest voice, it's my biggest family, but I do have the ability to reach other people. But if they ban TikTok because it's a national security issue, I'm an American, I'm a patriot. I will happily delete it off of my phone. I won't think twice about it if that's what's required. The benefits that I've gained from having TikTok and growing organically on that platform, I'm going to take with me. They're going to come with me regardless of it. I've gotten an education from TikTok. That's what I've benefited from. It's not for I wanted to get involved in making content because I wanted to try to provide a voice of an engineer, of a father, of a son, of a husband that's out and interested in this thing. That's just a normal dude. Joe and Ben from UFO Garage. They're the people that I talked to that made me feel that they're just like me. If they're out there making a podcast, then I could do it too. I think that the UFO community has a um, what's the word I'm looking for? A relatability issue. I feel like there's a lot of people in this community that are so far out of the norm as far as what you would see somebody bump into somebody at Walmart that it makes us unapproachable at times. And so I wanted to try to provide, hey, I'm just a regular dude, just like you. This is something that interests me. And if you're interested in it too, here's some interesting info that you can go look up and dig into further on your own. So that's why I was on TikTok to begin with. And I learned how to make videos. I learned how to edit videos. My quality of content has increased because of TikTok and will continue to increase because you learn by doing. But if if they say that they need to get rid of TikTok, I'm going to go ahead and do it. And I'm going to say, thank you. Thank you for the education. Thank you for the experiences that I've had. And once again, thank you for letting me have a voice. Not too many years ago, I don't think I felt like I was on an island as far as my interest in UFOs, that I didn't have anybody to talk to in my personal circle. So these social media platforms allowed me to actually have a voice that could be heard and received warmly by other people that have an interest in this topic. So I made good friendships. Some of those people on TikTok are now on Twitter and Instagram and follow me elsewhere. So my diehards are going to stick with me, I'm sure.
Oh, I'm sure they would. I'm sure they would. I mean, why wouldn't they? But I just look at it. I don't know how I could look at it so positively. All that hard work. So we got about a minute to go, but all that hard work to be thrown away because of people worried about the Chinese government infiltrating the United States personal information. And I would be like pulling out my hair, like I got 280 plus thousand subscribers and about to possibly lose it. Like I would be freaking out right now. Like, I don't know how you're able to stay so calm and positive.
Um, People seem to think that you make a lot of money in ufology. I don't. Like, TikTok is the only thing that I have monetized, but it's not much. It doesn't make that much of a difference to me. So it's not like I'm going to feel a pain. I'm happy to have a family on there, but I am happy to continue doing what I'm doing. If those people are going to be leaving TikTok along with me, I hope, and I will be asking them to follow me on other platforms. So I don't think that it's going to make a big difference in my motivation to continue pushing on this issue and trying to get to the truth and trying to improve my video content and the educational aspect of what I'm doing. So I'm not worried about it because I'm playing the long game. TikTok might not be what I'm doing 10 years from now as far as this topic goes. I want to be a stable voice going forward.
Dan Warren, fifth pillar of emphasis on Spaced Out Radio tonight. Make sure you check it out. Hit subscribe on TikTok, on YouTube, Instagram, all at fifth pillar of emphasis. We'll be right back on Spaced Out Radio. That was a quick half hour.
All right, are we clear? I've got one more option for audio. Let me try that out real quick while we're in the commercial break.
We got like 4.5 minutes.
All right, you be my guinea pig.
All right. I'm being the guinea pig. There's Dan's hand. Using his left hand right there. He's digging in. Look how precise that beard is on the cheeks there.
Okay, can you hear me on this one?
Oh, that's beautiful. That's beautiful.
Okay, is this
100%.
better?
100%.
This is what I was going to try in the pre-show, but I didn't. I thought that I would just rely on the earbuds. Once again, anyone listening, I apologize. I hate when there's audio issues with guests, and it's me this time.
No worries. No worries. You know what? It was a little crackly, but we were totally able to make out what you were saying. So that's okay. That's okay. We're doing just fine. Are your kids still on spring break, or are they back to school now?
So my youngest had a slumber party for one of her friend's birthdays on a Friday, and the next week was the week before spring break. None of those girls that went to that slumber party went to a single day of school the week in front of spring break because they all ended up catching the flu A and flu B at the same time.
Oh my
But
goodness.
then, we're back off of spring break. They've been in school for about 2 weeks now. Ours is rather early, but yeah, they're back in, and everybody's doing fine. Everybody's healthy at the moment, but it
Good.
doesn't last long, unfortunately. But hopefully, summer will make it to where we're all a little bit healthier.
Yeah, we're on spring break through this weekend, and then the boy goes back to school on Tuesday after. But you know, it's so funny. He his hockey season just ended about 2 weeks ago, and he's more hockey crazy now than he's ever been. You know, and it's kind of fun to watch. It's kind of fun. I had to set a rink in my basement for him.
Tomorrow is our last day of volleyball season. So me and my wife coach her volleyball team. We
Right.
are the bad news bears of the league right now. We have yet to win a game. So I think our tournament is going to end rather abruptly tomorrow, but it's always a lot of fun. And I like running around there and pretending to be a child again and goofing off with them and enjoying practice.
Oh yeah. Absolutely. Absolutely. I don't blame you on that whatsoever. It's a great anytime you get to work with kids, man, it's always beneficial. That's for sure.
My favorite experience was coaching soccer when they were tiny, when they were like 5 or 6 years old, because the coach could be on the field and you basically can grab the kids and kind of push them to where you want them to go. And it's just absolute controlled chaos at that age. It's just so much fun. Their emotions are so high and they're so excited to be out there to having a blast. It's great.
Yeah, my son's begging me to coach hockey. He wants me to coach him next year. And my community has a really, really bad problem with horrible coaching. God bless the volunteers who do it, but for some of them, learn how to skate before you start teaching kids. Learn how to hold a hockey stick before you start teaching kids. And it's difficult to watch because I used to be a former hockey instructor. So I know like the intricacies of everything. And watching my son learn all of these horrible habits over the last 5 years, I'm just like, oh, I don't want to coach. I just want to be the guy in the stands.
Yeah.
But my son loves the game, and he's not learning it properly. And yet I got this brain full of knowledge of hockey that I could be teaching him. And is it a waste if I don't teach him? But he's having fun. So I'm having this great debate in my head on what to do because I hate hockey parents. I
was about to mention that. Like, it's being a coach, the kids aren't the hard part. It's the parents that get upset if things don't go their kids' way every single time. That really gets old real fast, unfortunately.
Oh, yeah. Absolutely. We got about 25 seconds. Thank you to Deborah Rooney and T-Bone for the great super chats tonight. Very much appreciate the love and support that you guys show us. You could also do some shopping at our Spaced Out Radio store. We do not have ugly swag, people. no ugly swag. So make sure you check it on out. We'd appreciate it. And you only have a couple weeks left to get your tickets in and your names in for our fan party in Reno. More at the next break. Here we go. Second half hour of Spaced Out Radio is now underway. Thank you for joining us. My name is Dave Scott. We always appreciate hurting your listening ears wherever you are on this beautiful planet we call Earth. Hey, I want to remind all of you all that if you missed portions of this show or others, you can always check out our free archives by going to youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio. Do old Davey the favor, hit that subscribe button. Our website, spacedoutradio.com. We have a plethora of features for you. Rock out to Bumblefoot, read the news wire, check out our swag as well. Follow us on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio, Instagram at Spaced Out Radio Show, and on Patreon in the Space Travelers Club. Here we go again. Dan Warren from the TikTok channel, Fifth Pillar of Emphasis, talking about UFOs. And we're going to get deep into this subject right now. Dan, it has been a real up and down start to this year in the UFO world. It started late last year or summer last year where the United States Navy basically said they weren't going to play in the UFO game anymore. And it's been distraction after distraction. Then Dr. Sean Kirkpatrick comes along and drops that report that many people are just tearing apart, from government officials right down to experiencers themselves. I mean, when you look at what's gone on in, say, the last 6-8 months, it's wild, man.
But it's wild, but it's part of a repeatable pattern that has been established since 1947. And that's one of the videos I made, is I went through the report. The report does have value. It is a excellent timeline of the United States government's investigations into the UFO phenomenon. It lists everything, every name that they had as they were going through, that they're telling us about. There might be some in there that there's no mention of Majestic 12, if that actually was a thing or not. But they do tell us what is, I guess, in the public knowledge base as far as what happened. And the pattern that emerged was someone would become curious about the UFO phenomenon. And I refer to it as being open-minded and having scientific curiosity about these phenomena that they were seeing in the sky. And in 47, it started with General Nathan Twining, when he wrote the Twining memo and said that this phenomenon is something real and not visionary or fictitious. And I also want people to remember that he said that they appear to be elusive by nature. That's something that I feel like has been true and consistent throughout the course of our experience with whatever this phenomenon is. But the pattern starts out with someone being curious and open-minded about this topic. They start investigating it within the government, and then the Pentagon leadership steps in and says, we're going to put an end to this. We're going to start Project Grudge. We're going to shut this down, and we want everything to be explained and debunked. And it was successful in 49. They started Grudge back up. They tried to be neutral. They started investigating it, and it made them more curious about what's going on. And so they started taking it more serious. So then they started Project Blue Book to debunk and explain everything away. Well, they started to become more curious with J. Allen Hynek eventually flipping because of the Lonnie Zamora case, where he became convinced that he had been doing the wrong thing and needed to start actually taking an open-minded view of the phenomenon, became more scientifically curious. And then that's when the Condon Committee was formed to put an end to their investigation and put the nails in the coffin. I feel like that's what we're seeing now. OSAP, ATIP, we had all of the different iterations, the UAP task force, they were all curious. And then the DOD stepped in and said, wait, we're going to create AIMSOG. We're going to put an end to this. They have morphed into Arrow. And I feel like where we're at right now is they thought that they just laid the Condon report in our laps and that this is all going to go away. But with social media and with the influence that the members of Congress have now, that they realize that they're being snowed. That's my favorite term for it. I'm borrowing that from Russ Coulthard. The Congress is realizing that they've been snowed, and they're not going to let this go this time. So hopefully this pattern doesn't fully repeat, but the attempt has just repeated itself.
Yeah, and you know what? For a lot of these politicians out there, this is their real first look at the power of the military industrial complex and how it really does control what the United States government does and says. And it's hard to believe that it's not nuclear weapons, it's not the war between Russia, Ukraine, or what's happening in the Middle East. It's UFOs that has brought this out, Dan.
Yeah, and the one of the, for as much flack as John Greenwald gets, some of the things that he says should ring true with all of us. And he was going back and forth with Stephen Greenstreet here recently because Stephen thinks that it's all been debunked, and John said, "Well, if there was nothing to this, why would they put so many layers of secrecy and obfuscation in front of any information related to this topic? Why would they make this so difficult to get any information out? Something's up. We don't know what it is, but something is going on."
No, I think you're absolutely right when it comes to that. And John Greenwald, love him or hate him, I think John's a good guy. I think he's one of those guys who I think really needs an experience to understand what he's really dealing with, and a lot of people in this field are truly like that. But Stephen Greenstreet from the New York Post, I think he does it because he likes to get a rise out of people. I think that's why he's found his group of people that he could pick on, and that's why he's doing what he's doing. Because it's real simple. If you don't agree with people, all you got to do is ignore them. They end up going away when you ignore them. But the minute you keep throwing gasoline on the fire with retweets and responses, that's what keeps them going.
And both of those guys, I would classify or categorize them in the shark category of the UFO food chain, because they are looking for those arguments. What they're the best test for what videos come out or what information is leaked from the government. They dig into it better than anyone I know. There's value in that, of course, but the way that they present it is, in my opinion, totally different.
Mm-hmm.
One is just saying, "Hey, this is the information," and it doesn't line up, and the other is basically trying to stab it in your timeline, in your tweets, and your threads.
Mm-hmm. Well, it's funny with Stephen Greenstreet, because I actually like him. I think there's a time and a place for what he does. I just don't like the slant he's taking. I'd like to see him more unbiased, much like you. Okay, I would really like that, because you don't get a job with the New York Post if you're an idiot or a big major media player. Okay, there's still some accountability on how to do a job. But one day I called him out. I called him out on something that I didn't agree with, journalist to journalist, and it got back to him. Somebody was listening to the show, and did you hear what Dave Scott said about you? And he started the tweets against me. And I said to him, point blank, if you would like to talk about this, I don't talk business via social media. If you want to talk about this, I'll send you my number. So I sent him my number. My phone never rang, and I never got a response back on social media from that. It's a perfect example, right? And sometimes
Yeah.
you have to do that with some people, but that being said, I think John Greenwald is very right. They seem to be covering up everything, cover up after cover up after cover up. There's something there. What it is, we can only assume what they know. But getting back to the original point, with a lot of these politicians going into their first real encounter with the military industrial complex, you've talked to Tim Burchett before. You've been to the hearings, Dan. I mean, are these people, in your opinion, a little bit shocked by how these powerful members of the military community are really trying to close the doors on this subject?
I think the person that resonates with me the most currently is probably Representative Eric Burleson, because he's fresh into Congress. He had an impression that it was bad, and then he got in and said it's worse than I thought it was. So his involvement in this conversation, I feel like he's coming from a very honest place. And I think he is shocked by how uncooperative the military industrial complex is on this topic in particular. And of course, I think it was, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think it was Eisenhower that made a very bold statement on the way out of the White House to beware of the military industrial complex. And the more I listen to that video clip, the more ominous it has become in the last half of a decade. It's shocking how little cooperation our elected officials can get from the military industrial complex. Just the trip down to Eglin Air Force Base with Gates, Luna, and Burchett, that was kind of telling, in my opinion, that the commander of the base shut him down or tried to. And then he was basically explained how power flows in the government, and he had to let them in and provide them with some information. It shouldn't be that hard for our elected officials to get the base level information of what they're looking for.
That's the trip, if I recall, that Anna Luna was questioned whether or not they saw alien bodies, correct?
That one I can't recall right now, Dave. That's the one that I know that Gates saw the picture of the craft that he couldn't identify, where they went out over the ocean, and that's the one that just recently came out on the Black Vault, along with the gentleman's name that actually filed the FOIA request, where he got a sketch of what the object was that they saw. There were 4 of them flying in a diamond formation, but only one of them was visible to the human eye. The other 3 were only visible on radar, and all of a sudden their information or their sensor arrays blanked out because their circuit breaker tripped while they were nearing the object. So they were being messed with, for lack of better terms. But that was the big moment that I remember from that trip down to Eglin Air Force Base.
Now, one of the big arguments, Dan, is we allegedly don't know whether this is human or non-human when it comes to the technology. There's a lot of people who speculate that they don't believe it's Russia or China, but that the Americans are actually testing their own new technology on their own military, and the military channels don't even know about this. What do you think is going on here? Do you think there's a chance that it is human technology?
I've been asking that question to any member of the military that I speak with, and it seems to be about a 50-50 split. Some of them say, oh, yeah, that happens all the time. And then others say, there's no chance that would ever happen. The telling thing for me is, of course, the Nimitz encounter from 2004. We're 20 years on at this point. Nothing performs nearly to a fraction of the level of performance that the Tic Tac experienced or demonstrated while Fravor was engaging with it. Nothing even close. So I don't know how it could be possible that we have that type of a technology out there that hasn't surfaced at any point, if it is developed enough to where it could outmaneuver our best aircraft at that time. So I am very reluctant to believe that we are putting our members of the military at risk by exposing them to test articles that are not reliable, because let's face it, test articles aren't production models. They're prototypes. They're more prone to failure than they're working the bugs out as they develop these things. So whatever it is going to be riskier than the final product, the polished product that the pilots are out there flying, the F-18 Super Hornets that Fravor was in this case. So I don't see that as a logical scenario to play out, and I tend to agree with the people that say there's no way they would be doing that.
Well, it's going to be interesting to see how it actually plays out, because there are way too many questions and answers right now on where these craft are coming from. And it just seems like every time we start to get closer, they throw in more routes, like non-human intelligence. It's not just from space, but now we're talking time travelers, inner Earth, other dimensions, or, something that's been living in the ocean for the last million years that we don't know about, much like the movie The Abyss back in the early 90s. I mean, do we have, or do you think in the people you've talked to, there is more focus and attention that we have more knowledge that they're just not sharing?
So one of the interesting aspects of the recently released historical report by Arrow is the fact that they only use the word extraterrestrial. They say found no evidence of extraterrestrial technology or aircraft. No one's saying that anymore. We're all referring to the much broader terminology, the non-human intelligence. So I and others are suspecting that that is a wordplay mechanism that Arrow used by putting extraterrestrial in there because they don't define it either. So is it possible that they do know more about what it is? Because if you listen to John Brennan when he was on the podcast, John Brennan is the former director of the CIA. He tried to explain the origin of the UFO phenomenon, and he put out a very labored response that was along the lines of it could be something that potentially resembles some form of something that could be qualified as some form of life, like a very labored response to a very simple question. So it's almost like they know that it's something beyond the extraterrestrial explanation, but they're not willing to share that information with us at this point. Maybe we don't have a vocabulary that is adequate to explain what it is. And that's one of the things they're struggling with. But to me, they have a lot more information than they're sharing with us. Definitely, if they're going to pigeonhole it as extraterrestrial instead of I think the term NHI was used 23 times in the Schumer Rounds Amendment. If that's what Congress is asking about, and then they're going to deliver us something about extraterrestrials, there's a disconnect.
I think there's a big disconnect. Do you think that these politicians really do want to get to the truth and the heart of the matter of UFOs? Do you think they want the public to know? Because I keep hearing this famous word that we call transparency, but I'm not seeing a lot of transparency actually happening.
I mean, I think that what has set the hook in a lot of them is the fact that they don't feel the military is being transparent with them. I interviewed Representative Andy Ogles, and he admitted that is why he is involved in this, because he wants to make sure that there is accountability from the military to the elected officials as well, and they need to be transparent with the elected officials. But is that going to trickle down to us? I'm not 100% convinced at this point. I've rec-
See,
I've recently changed my perspective. Sorry, Dave. And I always assumed that disclosure would have to come from the government. But the more and more I think about it, it could just as likely come from an outside organization that would then turn around and force the government to have to confirm the findings of someone that finds the bulletproof evidence that we need to get to big D disclosure.
I agree with you on that, and I'm very, very certain now that I don't think disclosure is going to happen with the U.S. government. I think we're going to continue down this confirmation route, confirming the phenomena, but I see another country doing it, and it wouldn't surprise me if it's the pressure of China or Russia or some other adversarial country that isn't reliant on the United States to make that decision, just to give them the old screw you. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, and what people don't really know is, and we don't know. I don't know how involved China is, but we do know that they've been interested in this topic for decades at this point. There was a meeting of 50 Chinese scientists back in 1994, I believe, and they put forward a recommendation to the government that we do need to investigate this. We do need to put our greatest minds in academia on this topic. And then fast forward a few decades, they've now started to utilize AI to analyze the information that they receive of the objects that are flying in their sky. So they're working much more silently behind the scenes than our government is allowed to because of the way that our governments are set up, obviously. So other countries are taking this issue seriously. They're putting resources into it. They've had their Roswell events. They know something's going on, and you could be right. Maybe the United States is basically just doing a stall tactic so that they aren't the ones that are holding the bucket when this comes out. Because if the United States admits to it, the next question is going to be, well, how long have you known? How much have you known? Why have you kept this a secret from us? Whereas if another country comes out, the United States could play dumb and say, well, we didn't know any of that stuff. Look, go ask those guys question. Don't come talk to us about this. Go hit those guys up.
Yeah, I think it's a matter of deflection still to hide the technology that they have and that they have recovered, whether it's the bodies, whether they're dead or alive. Has their communication been made? You know, when they still can't answer what happened in Roswell in 1947, there's an issue there. There's something there other than a weather balloon. They know that. They know the public knows that they've never bought that excuse, and it's time to open up the doors. It tells me, you know, reading between the lines, we have the toys. We don't want you playing with our toys. Therefore, we're going to shut the door and take our balls home. That's exactly what they've done.
All right. You bring up a good point that I want to pick your brain on real quick, if you don't mind. This,
please. We got 3 minutes.
If they think that a weather balloon is responsible for Roswell, why, which I don't agree with. What I'm bothered by is the secrecy around the 4 objects that were shot down last February. How come we haven't gotten an explanation for what most people think is a very prosaic object in the sky that was overreacted to? Why haven't they been transparent on that? Why haven't Congress been asking those questions? Did they recover anything at all? I feel like the one from Alaska, I think Dead Horse, they claim they didn't recover it, but did they? Like, what do you think? What's going on with the balloons?
The one up north was actually in the Yukon in Canada that was shot down by an F-22 Raptor out of Elmendorf Air Force Base because Canada's 42-year-old CF-18 Hornets don't have the radar technology yet in order to pick up those objects moving that slow. They couldn't get lock on it, whereas the F-22 could. Now, depending on the depth of the snow, okay, when it fell, I mean, that thing could have went down dozens of feet when it hit the snow. So there's that possibility there. Do I buy it? No, not at all. But I have sources in Canada who say that we have not actually recovered that object. Don't know where it went.
Did they take pictures of it even?
Right. Exactly. Now, the funny part about it is former Minister of Defense, Anita Anand, stated early on that it was a drone about the size of a Volkswagen Beetle, moving at about 40 kilometers an hour, which would be about 25 miles an hour. Okay, and it was moving slow. That's why the Hornets couldn't pick it up. You know, like Canada does, we have a few of them, but they're older Super Hornets that were bought off the Royal Australian Air Force. But we don't have the Super Hornets that the United States Navy and Marines have. So it was, I think there's a cover up there. Okay. I know that when they shot it down, they would have had the GPS coordinates to where it would have hit, or at least within a, you know, I don't even want to know how big the area would be, but they knew that it was more than it was a general area, put it that way. And it's disappointing. It's very disappointing to see that one being pulled over the eyes, for sure. We got about 30 seconds.
And it bothers me that there's no videos or photographs released when we know that if a Russian jet dumps fuel on an American aircraft and they film it, they're going to release that information ASAP. If it's just a mundane weather balloon, I don't understand why they wouldn't release that to members of Congress. Why would that be classified and not available for us as the public to see? Why are they not being transparent with us? It always boils back to that.
Dan Warren from the Fifth Pillar of Emphasis YouTube, TikTok channel. Make sure you check it on out. We're going to continue the UFO talk with Dan in hour 2 next. Stay tuned. This is Spaced Out Radio with host Dave Scott. All right, my man, we are clear. I'm going to take a quick break here. Do you want to take a break? We got like 5
I'm going to refill my water and probably get a fresh piece of gum. I'll be right back.
All right, I'm just going to take you off the screen and put you in the back of the green room, okay? All right. Dan Warren, everybody. We'll be right back, everyone. All right, I'm back. Want to remind you that you only have until April 10th to get your VIP tickets for the SOR fan party. Why? Because I'm going to buy the t-shirts. I'm going to pick them out for you, make them look good. And we want you to be a part of it. May 10th through 12th at the Silver Legacy Casino Resort. You can get info at spacedoutradio.com, email info@spacedoutradio.com, and check it on out. We want you to be there. We got a bunch of real cool guests coming. Yeah. Geraldine Orozco, Melinda Leslie, Lorian Fenton, Tom Whitmore, Science Bob, Lala Bright. Merle is going to be there. Carter Bouchard. Many, many others are going to be there hanging out with you. You get to go for dinner, breakfast, lunch, have a beer, whatever you want. That's why we do it. We've got the live radio show happening. We have the everything that you really need to have some fun with us. So come have fun with us in Reno, May 10th through 12th at the Silver Legacy Casino and Resort. Info at spacedoutradio.com. Info at spacedoutradio.com. I'm only getting a certain amount of shirts, and I got to go by the amount of people that are there. So make sure you get them to us today. Thank you tonight to T-Bone times 2 and Deborah Rooney for the super chats tonight. Very much appreciate the love and support. Don't forget, you can shop at our Spaced Out Radio store. We do not have ugly swag, people. No ugly swag. So make sure you check it on out and go get your swag today. Here we go with the second hour, everybody. Here comes the second hour of Spaced Out Radio tonight. Good to have you with us. My name is Dave Scott. Always appreciate earning your listening ears. Reminder to all of you that if you miss portions of this show or others, check out our free archives by going to youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio. Do old Davey the favor. Hit that subscribe button. Our website, spacedoutradio.com. We have a plethora of features for you. Rock out to Bumblefoot, read the news wire, check out our swag as well. Follow us on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio, Instagram at Spaced Out Radio Show, and on Patreon in the Space Travelers Club. Here we go. Fifth pillar of emphasis. TikTok. So Dan Warren is here. We're talking about the UFO story tonight. Everything that's new and improved with what's going on. Dan, thank you so much for being here. Very much appreciated.
It's always a pleasure, Dave.
Dan, right before the break, we were talking about the real divide within the U.S. government and the military-industrial complex. You've talked to a number of representatives who are seriously looking into this subject. What's your overall consensus of what they are going through and how they are being stonewalled?
I'm going to have to answer that in two parts. I would say what they're going through right now, a lot of them, is the same learning curve that anyone new to this topic is going to face and going to have to overcome to be familiar with how much information. This is an information dense topic. There's so much history, so many books to read, so much current events going on. You don't understand what's happening now if you don't understand what has happened in the past. And I definitely learned that when I interviewed Representative Ogles. I asked him just a few what I considered simple, everybody in ufology knows about him. He didn't know what ATIP was. It shocked me that he had as small of an understanding of the UFO topic that he had. He doesn't particularly seem to be interested in the UFO topic itself. What drew him into the conversation was the fight for transparency from the military-industrial complex to the government. That's what I think these members of Congress are actually sinking their teeth into. And as they're going, and the UFO phenomena is just the mechanism for them to get their teeth into this. I think that the pushback that they're receiving is only going to make them dig their heels in even further and continue to push and push and push, because they've figured out that something has gone awry with our government and our relationship, their relationship with the military, that they have they're too big for their britches is almost what I feel like these members of Congress are kind of viewing the military as right now, that they don't think that they have to respond to these representatives. And that's why I think they're pushing so hard on this right now. They're not getting a response that they want, so they're going to continue to push. With the Schumer Act being shot down, he's a member of the Gang of Eight. He's the most influential senator out there right now. If he's not getting a response, if he's being his efforts are being thwarted, he's going to push even harder. It's just like anyone else. If you tell me no, that's going to make me want to push even harder to get a yes, to get an answer, to get a problem solved that I'm looking into. I think that what's happening now is just going to ensure the resolve of members of Congress to continue to push and continue to fight for transparency. And we as a species benefit from learning more about our place in the universe because of it.
Well, you know what? As the Congress people keep getting younger and younger, and a lot of these older cronies are starting to see the end of their career. There is a new attitude that is coming in, and whether you're a Republican or a Democrat doesn't matter. This is a unified topic, and that's one thing that I'm very impressed with down south is Democrats and Republicans don't agree on a lot, but when it comes to UFOs, they seem to be banding together.
Absolutely. And it's great to see like AOC sitting across from Matt Gaetz, and I think Tim Burchett it was probably Laszlo. I want to say Matt Laszlo, shout out to him, Askapol, that took a picture of Representative Moskowitz, who's a Democrat, Burchett, who's a Republican, Luna, who's a Republican, and Burleson, who's a Democrat, as they were getting ready to leave a press conference that they had. And they were just having all smiles. They were all smiles. They were having a large time. They were getting along so well. But that's the only topic that all of these people can come together in agreement on. It is a thing of beauty. And that is hopefully a small dose of what the UFO phenomenon could do to the population of humanity as a whole. I always tell people, if someone in the United States asks me or where I'm from, I'm a Tennessean to them. They don't care what town I live in. I'm a Tennessean. If someone in another country wants to know where I'm from, I'm an American to them. If there is something outside of Earth, I'm a human, and we're all humans, and we can all come together on that. And I feel like what we're seeing with the Republicans and Democrat coming together is hopefully a small dose of what we could see across humanity if we find out we're not alone after all.
Do you
It'll work
think
for a little while at least, and then we'll start infighting again, though, unfortunately.
right? But it comes back to the fact, are these newbies like Burleson prepared for the answers that are there? Because the one thing about the military is the military will always be there. The secrets will always be there. There are people who give oaths and NDAs to protect those secrets. Yet Congress people and senators, they come and go through their electoral wins and losses. I could see where the military side is scared to talk to these people about it because they don't know if they're there for one term, two terms, or for some congressmen and senators, 10, 20 terms. They don't know.
Yeah, that there's a temporary employee tag placed on elected officials. And we've even seen Representative Mike Gallagher is stepping down, not running for re-election, I should say. And he was the gentleman that at the first congressional hearings was asking about the UFO and nukes connection. He was asking about the Wilson Davis notes. And now we've lost him as an advocate for this discussion. I think that the job is a tough job. It's not an easy one. You have a lot of balls to juggle. You got a lot of things to take care of, and for them to focus on the UFO phenomenon is not a luxury that they're afforded. So I think that when they do and they are getting this pushback, that it's not, how would I say it, it's not going to change their worldview quickly, because they probably think this is just part of a process. But now I think they're becoming more aware of this process seems to be different when it comes to asking for information about UFOs. Does that mean that they aren't going to be shared with because they're new? Schumer's not new. He's been there a long time. He's an established member of Congress. He's not getting responses. So there's these new people are seeing how the older generation is being treated, and hopefully they'll learn lessons from their mistakes and not let up and keep pushing for it.
Yeah, that's definitely something that we're going to have to keep watching for it. But do you think that these people who are trying to get the answers through UFO hearings and everything, do you think that they understand the size of this story? Do you think they understand the calamity it could bring forward? Because this, if the secrets, the truth came out with full disclosure, this could rock the U.S. government from everything from trust to lawsuits.
It could also be something that helps build trust in the United States government. If the government decided to start being honest and being transparent on this topic, it could go a long way to build some bridges of trust back. Because I mean, let's face it, COVID the government took a big hit on trust when it comes to the COVID-19 pandemic. There's a lot of trust lost. There's a lot of bridges that need to be rebuilt to get the American public on the side of the government. So I think that this is an opportunity as well as a risk. I don't know which way it's going to swing more. That's for the future to decide. We'll let the historians sort that out about 10 years after disclosure occurs, and we'll see exactly how beneficial or negative it was for the mankind as a whole.
Yeah, that's going to be interesting to see how that plays out. When we look at it from a citizen's point of view, okay, you're a citizen, I'm a citizen who has an interest in this topic. Do you see more people starting to gather around and have this conversation outside of what they're hearing on podcasts? Is it becoming more prevalent for you?
It's funny you say that. Last weekend, I went down to Georgia and attended my grandmother's 100th birthday party. Her 101-year-old bigger brother was there as well. While we were there, kids from, when I say kids, my mom's generation, they showed up to kind of support her and be there. And of course, someone like my family knows that I'm into this topic, of course. And one of the gentlemen that's there that I'm not actually related to, but grew up with him, confided in me his close encounters, I'll call them, not firsthand with the big one that he told me about when he was a member of the military, but then he did have two later on where he witnessed something flying by. So I feel like, and he said, I haven't even told my wife this. I've only told two other people and none of them were my wife. So I feel that people are becoming more comfortable with sharing this information with those that they can trust, those that they are in a circle with, a social circle with. But are they ready to speak out on a public platform? I don't think that we've reached that stage yet. I think some people are, but I think that there's a lot of people that are still closeted UFO fanatics, closeted UFO and encounter people because they don't want the stigma that comes along with it. It's been greatly reduced, but it hasn't been eliminated entirely. But we're getting closer and closer. That tipping point when that tipping point arrives where everybody's willing to speak up without the fear of ridicule is going to be a beautiful day. And your guest lineup is going to be much better than Dan Warren from the Fifth Pillar of Emphasis when that moment happens.
No way, man. You and I have a special friendship and bond. We're going to continue these conversations a couple times a year. That's for sure. But I look at it that, recently Paul Giamatti, the actor, came out saying that he wants to start talking more about UFOs and Bigfoot in public. Maybe he's going to start a podcast. And then Billy Corgan of the Smashing Pumpkins, along with Limp Bizkit frontman Fred Durst, they plan on starting a UFO podcast to start talking about the topic. I mean, it's insane, though, how many options people will have moving forward to hear about this topic at hand. And, none of us are even getting any further. I mean, they're going to be rehashing the exact same stories, except with a much larger audience. But bringing that subject to their fans, that's a good thing. It opens up the conversation more.
Yeah, so funny thing, Fred Durst actually follows me on TikTok, and we've communicated a few times. So I've actually had a few conversations with him. I never thought that would happen. That's one of the beauties of TikTok. I've talked to Tom Green. I've talked to celebrities on there as well. It's just such an odd world that we live in with social media. But that aside, like I was on a roundtable with, this was like 2 3 years ago at this point, and I can't remember who I was there with, but I made a prediction then. I was like, what we're doing now is this phase of ufology is temporary. I do firmly believe that as this progresses and it becomes more socially acceptable to talk about it and more part of pop culture, we're going to be replaced by someone that is a celebrity. We're going to be replaced by someone that is a good-looking, well-spoken individual. The youth is going to come up, and we're going to kind of have to step back and hand the torch over to these more well-funded media corporations that are going to become the ones that take this baton and run with it. So I think we're witnessing the front end of that right now. I mean, our friend Dave Foley has a podcast. Fred Durst, Billy Corrigan having one. It's just the beginning. I feel like we're going to start seeing a lot more of that happening.
Yeah, I like Lex's comment in the chat room. They need to bring Wes Borland's weird ass into that UFO podcast with Fred Durst. Oh yeah, I don't care what anybody says. I'm a big Limp Bizkit fan, really big. I like him. I've always liked him.
Oh.
So maybe Fred Durst, if you're listening, give us a call sometime. Hit us up because we definitely want to have you on this show. But I mean, the good part about it is you need people of influence in order to start a movement. Like I've been highly critical of Tom DeLonge over the years with his move into the Stars Academy and everything. But you know what? Where I do give Tom credit is he has multi-million followers on social media, and he has brought this subject to light, whether it's at his concerts with reuniting of Blink 182, whether it's his publicity on interviews that he has done. He's done a moderately good job at bringing some light to the subject to people who may not be educated in even knowing this is going on. And we could continue to do our part with what we're doing, and hopefully we can ride that wave through people like you, people like me, and others who are doing hard work on this, and hopefully we don't get eaten up by the celebrity wolves who are looking for a new way to get their name out there and market themselves.
Yeah, it's very interesting. I don't know if you've noticed the pattern of more and more celebrities willing to talk about this topic, like willing to say that they've actually seen a UFO. Aaron Rodgers has said he's seen a UFO. Shaq has seen a UFO. Camilla Cabello, I believe is how you say her name. She said her parents have seen one. There's just Whoopi Goldberg recently said that she believes that the aliens are already here. She said that on The View just a few days ago, I think. So
Yes.
it's one of the examples that Representative Ogles gave me is that he is over I want to say the Banking Commission subcommittee as one of his roles in Congress, and he went to speak in front of 300 bankers, and they didn't want to talk about banking. They wanted to talk about his involvement in the UFO phenomenon. So they kind of got all the stuff out of the way and said, all right, now let's talk about UFOs. What do you know about it for real? And
Yeah.
more people at high levels are starting to go, there is something to this, you mean? I can't believe it. And I'll be honest, I think that I think there is a pop culture influence that needs to happen for this movement to really pick up momentum. There's a lot of people in the music industry that have seen things. And if they would actually start coming on to podcasts like yours and just letting people know what they saw, give them
I
their
want
honest opinion.
My dream interview is Sammy Hagar.
Oh yeah,
And
that guy's got some good
because
stories.
he is he's not quiet, but he's not open about his extraterrestrial contact where he has been taken. And if anybody wants proof of this, go back to the song Love Walks In when he was with Van Halen, Read the lyrics. It is about the seventh dimensional being, a lady in a silver gown, who comes and takes him. That's what the song is about. It's about his alien abductions. And it's incredible how many songs are actually hidden out there with people who have been experienced by this entire phenomena. And I think it's, to me, that's a great realm. And it's not just UFOs, it's cryptids, it's paranormal. Ron Bumblefoot Thal, who does our music, he had a situation where they were playing in Plovdiv, Czech Republic, at an amphitheater that's over 600 years old, 700 years old. And he got, first time ever, he got pushed on stage by a ghost and he fell down. And his guitar, the way it's set up, it never goes out of tune. And yet his top string kept going out of tune while they were playing there. And then finally, this ghost must have got pissed off and actually shoved him down in front of the audience. He's never fallen on stage before. But he said, Dave, I didn't trip. I actually I was pushed. And the keyboardist, Derek Sherinian, actually, as the sun was going down, he put his sunglasses on top of his head. He got his head smacked, and the sunglasses fell down into a crack on the stage between the rocks. He never recovered them.
That's odd.
Those are the stories we need.
So that's your Sammy Hagar's your dream interview. For me,
yes,
I want to interview Outkast. I'm from Atlanta. I want to sit down with Big Boy and Andre 3000 at one point, because they had an album called AT Aliens. The music that they made in that album is very otherworldly, to say the least. And what was their motivation behind doing it? I don't think they've said anything officially, so I want to pick their brain and find out. But I'm a hip hop head. Nas has seen a UFO. Mobb Deep has seen a UFO. There's so many people in hip hop that are Little Boozy has seen a UFO. So there's all these hip hop artists that have seen things, but they only talk to music podcasts about them. I'm waiting for that switch to where they actually come onto a UFO podcast and have discussions about what they saw and what the implications are of what they saw, how it changed their worldview, how it changed the way they see themselves as part of a bigger whole. What does it mean to them? That's what I want to find out. I'm waiting for that to happen.
Could you imagine if somebody like Taylor Swift came out and said that she saw a UFO, or that she believed
be awesome.
I mean, that's what you need. We talk about a lot of these celebrities who were once in that A-league tier, but I think the celebrity world right now, especially the music world, has bigger things to worry about than UFOs right now, considering what's going on with P. Diddy in this world. Oh, that's an ugly story. Don't want to go there. But nonetheless, we got about a minute to go here, Dan, before we have to go to break at the bottom of the hour. I think the influence of this story is starting to be captivating, but the secret holders, still, we do not know who they are. We think we know. Names have been bandied about for years. How do we actually get to the bottom of this if the gatekeepers are still as silent as ever?
So to side, or to provide a little sympathy for the current gatekeepers, it's my belief that they inherited the secret. They aren't the ones that initiated. That generation is long gone at this point. So the current secret keepers are just caught holding the bag. They don't want to be the ones that have to fall on the sword for this to come out. So they are going to fight tooth and nail to prevent this from coming out on their watch, so that they're blamed for this entire effort. How do we get that out of them? Man, if I knew the answer to that, I'd probably be able to have made more progress than I have. I probably wouldn't be on TikTok. I'd probably be writing the laws, or ghost writing the laws that Schumer puts forward. Dave, I honestly don't know how we can get it out of their hands, because they're bound and determined to keep it secret.
Dan Warren, everybody. We'll be right back after this. You're listening to Spaced Out Radio with your host, Dave Scott. I would love Sammy Hagar. That's the one story that's my dream story.
Yeah,
My
that would be
absolute,
fun.
oh yeah,
Have you
that's
been
the
able to reach out to him on,
I,
is he on social media?
I have reached out to him on social media a couple of times with no response. You know,
I'm
uh,
throwing darts I'm throwing out attempts into the ether all the time as well, just hoping that someone bites every now and then. It hasn't
you
worked out
have
so
to.
well.
No, it's the same with us. It hasn't worked out at all. I am gonna, I am gonna try and get a hold of Paul Giamatti because I'd like to talk to him about his interest. If it works, I don't know. I really don't know. Quickly here, Bad Jessica, how you doing? Welcome to SOR Chat. Matthew Anderson listening in on X. Thank you for coming on in. Vash the Impaler, good to see you. And who else is here? Brandon Coast, you're a little late, but we're glad you're here. Thank you for coming on in. And yeah, Memorial Gardens, good to see you as well. Yeah, I would love to somehow get a hold of him. And you know what? I had a buddy of mine. Actually, I still have a buddy of mine. He lives down in Texas now. But dude, he goes, he goes, the stuff you're into, he's like, Dave, every rock star has a story. Every rock star has their thing. And he goes, the amount of time they spend on the road, the weird shit that they are seeing, he goes, you wouldn't believe the haunted places that they've played. He said it's absolutely amazing. He goes, you'd be blown away some of the conversations I've had with people about this, but they just will not go public.
Yeah, did you ask them why they want? Are
It,
they
it,
afraid not to get
it's
signed or get
it's it's
shows?
it's image. Okay, they don't want to be the weird ones. It's like very rarely will you ever hear a musician tell you who they are supporting politically because they know that the record company people are so far to one side or the other that if they say that they support the other side, they could likely lose their recording contract. So that's why a lot of these guys, I mean, a guy like Ted Nugent, who's now in his 70s, whether you love him or hate him, doesn't matter. That's why he speaks out because he doesn't care anymore. He made his money. He may do a couple shows a year just for the rush, but he's not going on tour anymore, and that's kind of, when those celebrities kind of fall out of status, that's where they, they worry. That's when they speak politically about what they believe or not.
They
Gnome
open
Squad,
up a little bit more.
yeah, but I mean, Ron Thal, Bubblefoot, he does our music, and he came on a few years ago on Halloween to talk about that. And I asked him point blank, like, have you ever had something happen while you're on stage? And that's when he told us the story about Plovdiv, and with Sons of Apollo at that point. I mean, it's crazy. Cecil is saying Billy Corgan saw a lizard person. Thank you for putting that in. I thought he was an abductee too.
That I don't know. I do recall the lizard person. I think it was basically like a humanoid transitioned, like morphed into a lizard person, then morphed back, if I'm not mistaken. It's fuzzy.
Yeah. But I mean, I'd like to have Billy Corgan's money to kind of do what you want, including buying your own wrestling company.
Wrestling company?
Yeah, he owns the old NWA.
Oh, he does?
Yeah.
How about that? You got to invest your money somewhere.
He is a huge wrestling fan, and a huge UFO guy.
Have you ever been a wrestling? Like I was in college. It was the Attitude Era, like Stone Cold, The Rock. I loved it. We had two TVs going on at the same time in my dorm rooms, the WCW and the WWE at the same time, just to keep up with what was going on. It was great.
Good morning, Lorraine Bailey from Darlington, UK. Welcome to SOR Chat. Up here in Canada, we didn't get WCW. So when I found out about the NWO, it was pretty awesome. Pretty awesome. Yeah, for life, man. I love the
Well,
NW.
I've always explained it as it's a man's soap opera, basically.
Oh,
It's
yeah.
the best way to describe it.
Awesome. We got 15 seconds here. Big thank you to T-Bone times 2, Aloha Dave, A. Brock, and Deborah Rooney for the great super chats tonight. Very much appreciate the love and support, everybody. And don't forget, you can shop at our Spaced Out Radio store. We do not have ugly swag. You'll be proud to wear our stuff out in public. That's for sure. Here we go, everybody. Stay tuned. We're going in like 4 seconds. Here we go with the next half hour of Spaced Out Radio tonight. Second half of the show is underway. Dan Warren is our guest from Fifth Pillar of Emphasis on TikTok and YouTube. So make sure you hit the follow button. Hey, want to remind all of you that if you miss portions of this show or others, you can always check out our free archives by going to youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio. Do old Davey the favor. Hit that subscribe button. Our website, spacedoutradio.com. We have a plethora of features for you. Rock out to Bumblefoot, read the news wire. Check out our swag as well. Follow us on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio, Instagram at Spaced Out Radio Show, and on Patreon in the Space Travelers Club. We have until the top of the hour. Dan Warren from TikTok, YouTube, Instagram. Fifth Pillar of Emphasis is the channel name, and he does some great work following the daily UFO story. Dan, thank you for being here again. It's been a real pleasure.
I always enjoy catching up with you, Dave. It's my pleasure as well.
We've talked a lot about the politics side of everything here tonight, but we haven't really talked about the UFO side. You know, the criticism of Dr. Sean Kirkpatrick, the evolution of the Soul Foundation, Avi Loeb kind of going group to group from Harvard University, trying to figure out what is truly going on with this UFO subject. In your opinion, is there a truth out there? Are there people who actually know the true story that aren't involved in the government?
That aren't involved in the government. I believe that there are people that were involved in the government that have come out of the government that are not talking. Like there's no chance that these people are going to open up after the fact. I believe they are loyal patriots. They're going to complete the mission that they were given, and they're going to take it to the grave with them, most likely. I hope that someone decides to, and I don't know what the 40 whistleblowers have in store for us that David Grush has spoken with. That's my hope, is that those individuals will come out of the woodworks and support David Grush, because he is standing alone, taking a bunch of slings and arrows, and he needs his support group to come up and provide him cover to be able to to validate his concerns, his understanding of what's going on. He needs their help, and I would greatly appreciate if those individuals would be willing to step forward and speak up on his behalf as a friend, as a comrade, as a I think some of them were even the people that not groomed, what's the word I'm looking for, trained him coming up. They were his mentors in the military as he was coming up in his career. Those people, please speak up. But do I think people outside of the government have any information? I think there are people that do have an understanding of what's actually going on. You might be one of them, Dave, but your ability to prove that is where we're not going to get traction unless that photograph comes out, unless that video comes out, which is even questionable now that would be acceptable proof with the advancements in technology. Experiencing and knowing is different than the ability to prove something. That's where my concern lies. I think there's people out there that know, but I don't think there's those same people aren't out there that can prove it.
Do you think that, you know, if you take Sean Kirkpatrick and David Grush, there's a real battle of words going on there? Do you think that whistleblower testimony will have the impact that everybody in UFO knowledge thinks it might have? or do you think that they're going to be shut down by skiffs and lack of publicity?
I don't think that testimony is going to provide adequate proof to you and I. I think it's going to provide ammunition for us to pursue the truth, for us to pursue the data, the videos, the images that we need to the craft, anything that they've collected, the beings, even like those people can lead us, point us in the right direction. We're not going to cross the finish line by having someone tell us what they know. We are only going to cross the finish line when what they tell us takes us to the proof that we need, that's irrefutable, that no one can deny. And this is a conversation I have with Martin Willis on his podcast.
Mm-hmm.
There's not a single UFO sighting that everybody is in agreement with that's non-human intelligence technology. There's not a single one. We need one. And then that's a tipping point where progress can then be made at an exponential rate if we get that smoking gun evidence. But getting it is proving to be exceedingly hard, of course.
What do you think proper empirical evidence is these days? And the reason why I ask that, and I've said this numerous times on this show, if we put out a video now, there's a good chance that it's going to be labeled as CGI or AI. If we put out audio, it could be edited. If we put out photographs, oh, it's photoshopped. Nobody seems to believe the evidence that is out there anymore. So when everybody is crying wolf for evidence, I don't know what the hell evidence is anymore, Dan.
Well, I feel like the magnesium bismuth metal scrap that Sean Kirkpatrick is telling us is just a metal missile casing developed to a level that we couldn't do at the time. Surprisingly, I don't know how that works. That is something that also makes me go, even if they show us a craft, are we going to be able to say, well, yep, that's of non-human intelligence? Like, what is it about the craft that makes us believe that it's a non-human intelligence? The Nazca mummies that they've been talking about lately, whether or not you think that's legit or not, what makes us think those would be extraterrestrial? Why don't we automatically assume that those are of earthly origin? They're just a species that we didn't recognize, we didn't know existed. The Homo naledi didn't register on our radar until just a few decades ago. There's different humanoid species that are out there that we're just now learning about. If there's a species, if these Nazca mummies turn out to be true or actual living entities, they could be of earthly origin. It doesn't automatically mean they're extraterrestrial in origin. What is the definition of extraterrestrial? Do we have to see it coming in? What kind of an event has to occur? I'm right there with you, Dave. At this point, I don't even know. I don't know what proof is anymore.
Yeah, I don't know either. And it drains me at times because I get people in my chat rooms all the time when people are talking. Enough talking. Where's your proof? Where's your proof? What's proof? Explain to me what proof is.
And you can show them 100 pictures, you can show them 100 videos, and they'll say no, 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 no to all of them. But you never know. One of those pictures, one of those videos, Lou Elizondo was even hinted at it. There's some very compelling videos on YouTube. They just don't have the stamp of authenticity from the government, basically.
You got that right. And let's not forget, there are insiders who are leaking this stuff. And they're trying to track him down. But you brought up a good point earlier about David Grush not having any whistleblower support. How many whistleblowers do you think we need out there to start convincing people that there is something more to this? Another 2, another 5, maybe 10?
Yeah, I would say that's a formula. I don't think that's a easy answer. I think it would depend on who the individual is, the authority that that person represents, the trustworthiness that person brings along with them. There's several people that are members of the military that could come out and talk about it, and we've never heard of them. I don't understand all the ranks of all the different branches of the military. It's not significant to me to hear someone rattle off accolades that they've received. It doesn't compute in my mind. But if someone comes out that is the vice president or the director, that's the CIA director, if a former CIA director like John Brennan or John Ratcliffe come out, and he's even said that we have images of UAP satellite imagery of UAPs. That makes me believe that we have satellite imagery of UAPs because he was the former director of the CIA. So the credentials that these individual whistleblowers bring along with them would go into the calculation, go into the formula that would get me to the point where I say, well, I'm going to have to believe them now because of these credentials that they have as well, and the trustworthiness of this individual. So it's a variable, unfortunately. I'd like to say a dirty dozen would be a good way to a strong number of whistleblowers coming forward to make sure this was continuing to move forward in the right direction.
Yeah, I mean, I want to see that move forward too. The idea though that there are stories out there that we have heard, whether it's face-to-face encounters or whether it's sightings or even information. I think a lot of the whistleblowers all have some sort of different type of experience that they want to share. And from the 40 or 42 of them that I've heard and I've talked to some of them about, they're all waiting and they're all waiting behind the safety that they can talk freely about it, because the majority of them, we forget, still have mortgages, still have a pension plan that they want to retire on one day. Some of them are young enough where they want to, when their government career is over, they want to get into the private sector and be rehired for a different company at more money. There's a lot of things that are at play when you have children, when you have a spouse, or maybe you have parents who are ill that you're helping out. You want to make sure that you have that ability to do so. And if all of a sudden you're considered a whistleblower and don't have any protection, how do you come out? You can talk privately about it, but you can't talk in the public about it. You can't go public. Your career is over.
So I even think it goes even more, there's a more human element of it than what you've even described. Look at what happened to Grush. Shortly after he testified before Congress, a hit piece came out basically dragging him through the mud for having PTSD. Every one of us has had a phase in our life, a moment in our life where we weren't at our best. The government probably knows what those moments are for the people that have been within the military, within the government for decades and are established. They probably know that information and they don't want that information released. They don't want their legacy tarnished as well. So there's pride that comes into it. There's the fear of embarrassing your family that probably plays a part in them not wanting to come forward. So it's a very human aspect of a very unusual world that we're living through, that we're trying to navigate through and not suffer. Like, we don't want to suffer individually for people that are not related to us in our social circle. That's what I think we're dealing with, is people are human. People want to support themselves, their families, and they don't want to be dragged through the mud and be made to be a horrible human being for this poor decisions they may have made in the past. I think that plays into it as well.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right. In talking to one whistleblower out there, he told me that a number of whistleblowers that he has spoken with, they're all waiting for that protection to come through. They're not moving. They cannot move until that protection comes through, and that there is that protection that is also beneficial financially to be able to afford a proper lawyer who knows how law works and knows how to protect them properly. So that way the DOD or the CIA or anybody just can't say, oh, you were part of that whistleblower program. Yeah, you're fired and don't come around here no more. That's what they're all waiting for.
Yeah, and that's I don't blame them. We all have it sounds like it's echoes of when pilots would not report things that they saw because they were afraid of being sent to see the psychiatrist. That's a career ender. If you're a pilot, you want to keep flying. You don't want to report things, so they're not willing to come forward because of career suicide, basically. So I think that you're hitting the nail on the head, man. It's a career ender to be a whistleblower for especially a situation like this where it's obvious and it's clear the message that's being portrayed by the Pentagon leadership is don't give them any more information than absolutely that we absolutely have to. That's this back to the John Greenwald comment about how many layers of secrecy have been laid on top of the UFO phenomenon in particular. They're going to guard that information closely, and they are not going to allow people to come out without at least threats of repercussions if they do. That seems to be what we're witnessing right now.
It is absolutely the threat of repercussion, and when the report came out and Sean Kirkpatrick was stating that, he had not heard from any of the whistleblowers, my signal on my phone blew up with all sorts of that's BS type of comments, that they had reported him and that he was just protecting. Who do you think Sean Kirkpatrick was protecting with that?
I don't know if he was protecting anyone. I believe he is just following his orders, just like Condon. Like the way that he has maneuvered sounds just like what Condon did during the 60s, that he was basically brought in to kill it. It just seems so apparent to me now. I wanted to give him the benefit of the doubt. I've made numerous comments saying, let's give this guy a shot. Let's try. But the one thing that has come up in conversations with Danny Sheehan recently is he did bring back up the fact that the Congress was trying to establish a UFO investigation office called the UAP JPO, the Unidentified Aerial Undersea Phenomenon Joint Program Office. And then AIMSOG came in and put an end to that. Where would we be now if the Congress had been able to establish an office that was reporting to them instead of one that reported to the Pentagon leadership? That's where I'm frustrated more now than I was when this initially happened, because now it's obvious the Pentagon leadership is going to try to squash this and put this effort down. That's what we're seeing with this historical report. That's what we're seeing with Kirkpatrick's response to everything that's going on right now. And he's, of course, become very vocal in his putting out any embers of interest in this topic. He's trying to put a nail in the coffin, is how I view it. And I don't know if I've answered your question, Dave.
No, I think you've done a great job in that. Do you think that he was put up to shut it down like the Condon report, or do you think that he realistically did not have any sort of information provided that was necessary for him to admit that there is something more out there?
You're probably right. It could be a little bit of A and B. It could be that he was told, you're going to debunk everything, just like Project Blue Book was told to debunk everything, just like Project Grudge was told to debunk everything. He's come forward and been told the same thing. And if the Pentagon leadership, I also view this in a similar light to how I view the NASA effort. They're only looking at classified information or unclassified information. Sorry. So anything that was related to the UAP topic, the government gives to them, the government has a chance to say, yeah, we're not going to give you this. So NASA can look us dead in the eye and say, I've reviewed all the unclassified information and there's no evidence of UAP being a non-human intelligence. They can honestly say that to us because they're never given that information. Kirkpatrick might be in a similar situation where he's told, you're going to debunk everything. All you got to do is the Nimitz, the Go Fast, and the gimbal video. And he's done that in these recent interviews. He said the gimbal is probably a distant jet. And he said we proposed or hypothesized that that's what it was, and it could likely be. So he doesn't have it figured out and proven that that's what it is, but they just kind of he gives the impression of they gave a cursory glance of the gimbal video and said that's probably what it is. But then he doesn't even go any further and say, well, the video cuts out. What happens after the gimbal video cuts out? And this is one thing that I'm kind of passionate about. Why isn't anyone asking what happens after the gimbal video cuts out? We saw what happened with the Tic Tac video. Where does the gimbal go afterwards? That would answer so many questions about what it actually is. We don't see it come into frame. We don't see it leave the frame. Luna actually asked that question during the congressional hearing to Ryan Graves. I don't think he understood the question, to be honest with you. But why isn't Congress able to get the rest of the video? Why are they being snowed yet again?
Well, once again, I don't think they want the public to really know about it. That seems to be the real issue of everything. They don't want the public to know. They don't want the public to start asking questions. And I use this example often. And that is, all you have to do to see how technologically behind we are is look up at the sky and see Boeings and Airbuses flying over. You know what? 50 years ago, it was still a 6-hour flight between Vancouver and New York. The technology hasn't changed. The speed hasn't changed. Yet we're developing hypersonic rockets. We're developing supersonic stealth aircraft that look about the size of a flea on radar. You're telling me that we can't improve daily life and daily travel? You know, since the Concorde retired, even though the Concorde's leaked like a sieve, right? I mean, we look at it and it's all around us, how much they are hiding. And they want that control because you control the people, you control the media, you control the message. It's that simple.
Yeah, it seems like that's definitely, they want to keep their tight iron fist around this topic in particular. The thing that this brings up, of course, is if they have possession of this technology, there's a lot of people that would say we've been able to reverse engineer these craft and we have fully functional versions of it. Alien reproduction vehicles, I think is what they're called. I struggle with that being a reality, because if we had that technology, we would mass produce that as fast as humanly possible. It's hard for me to believe that we would be spending as much effort as we are on the next level of traditional petroleum-based aircraft that we have. It seems very counterproductive that we would do that, and we just want to say, all right, we won. Here's our Tic Tac that can do anything we want, anywhere we want it to go, and deliver any package that we want it to deliver. Yet we're still testing and developing prototype airplanes at significant cost. Maybe it's a money-making scheme, but maybe we don't have the ability yet to reproduce an actual non-human intelligence-based technology like that. That's one of the things I struggle with. Where do you think we are? Do you think we have the ability to reverse engineer anything at that level?
I don't know if we do, but I think we're close if we haven't already. And I do believe that we are in the hands of some amazing technology that if we got rid of the egos and started working together, it would benefit all of humanity. That's what I believe. From the fact that aging to diseases like cancer to technologies such as zero-point gravity and propulsion and, everything. I think we would be able to improve humanity greatly if we actually weren't selfish. Dan, sorry, I have to cut you off there. We're about to go. We can find you at the Fifth Pillar of Evidence or of Emphasis on TikTok, YouTube, Instagram, every barbershop in Texas, because his beard is always tight. All right. Or Tennessee, not Texas. Pardon me. Dan, thank you for coming on Spaced Out Radio again, my man.
It's been a pleasure yet again, Dave. Thank you for having me on, man. Thank you guys for listening.
We'll do it again soon with Dan Warren, Fifth Pillar of Emphasis. Coming up next, Steve Stockton from Among the Missing. Then Nicole Sackage is here Filling in for Courtney on the UFO.
You're listening to Spaced Out Radio with your host, Dave Scott.
Great job, Daddy. Thank you so much.
I'm not going to let you stop this conversation yet because I was really into that one before we got cut off. So I want to ask you this.
Yeah.
Do you think that the hurdle that we have yet to overcome with reverse engineering this craft is associated with the consciousness connection associated with the phenomenon? That's my concern, is we're looking at it as a traditional physics problem to solve.
Yes.
And there's this other element that we
Yes.
aren't even taking into consideration when trying to solve that problem. Like, that's the thing that I'm fascinated by.
I think, and that's an entirely different show. If you want to stick around and have that conversation with Nicole and you're more than welcome to, if you don't have to get up early.
Dude, I wish I could, but man, it's like 1 o'clock here. I gotta go to bed, man. I hate to back out on you.
Well, let's talk on the phone about that, because I think that's an important part. But yes, I think the biggest issue is we have not figured out how the phenomena works. We could figure out the technology. We could come close on some technology, but we got no idea how the phenomena works. And in my opinion, the phenomena is extremely godly to humanity. That's the way I'll leave it.
And that provides me hope, man. Like, if that's something that we can actually connect to, that's a comforting feeling, to say the least.
Very true. My man, let's talk soon.
All right, man. Thank you for having me on.
Thank you, Danny. Always appreciate you. Thank you.
Take care.
Bye-bye. Dan Warren, everybody. I'll be right back. And we're coming back with Steve Stockton and Nicole. All right, I'm back. Hi, Data. How are you? Thank you for joining us. Big thank you tonight to Andrew, A. Brock ×2, T-Bone ×2, Stephen, Aloha Dave, and Debaruni for the super chats tonight. Very much appreciate all your love and support. And we're going to get going here in just a few seconds. Stay tuned. Hello and welcome back to the third hour of Spaced Out Radio tonight. My name is Dave Scott. Always appreciate earning your listening ears wherever you are on this beautiful planet we call Earth. Hello to everyone listening in on our terrestrial affiliates around North America, digitally on Odyssey Radio, TalkStream Live at KPNL. All of our archives are free. Please join us at youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio. Do old Davey the favor, hit that subscribe button. The Desert Clam has set the password for tonight in the SOR Space Travelers Club. What do we got tonight? Europegium. Europegium is your password. Use it wisely, Space Travelers, as the Clam sets a password each and every night right here on Spaced Out Radio. Our website, spacedoutradio.com, we have a plethora of features for you. Rock out to Bumblefoot, read the news wire, check out our swag as well. Follow us on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio, Instagram at Spaced Out Radio Show, and on Patreon in the Space Travelers Club. It's that time of the night we say hello to Steve Stockton from the YouTube channel Among the Missing and Another Creepy Story.
Hello, friends. Welcome to Among the Missing YouTube channel on Spaced Out Radio. I'm Steve Stockton, and I'm about to take you on an unbelievable journey of people just like you. Their stories and encounters will haunt us on Among the Missing. In the early afternoon of October 14, 2006, Sammy Bulkey, aged 8, was playing near the Cleetwood Cove area in Crater Lake National Park with his father, Kenneth Bulkey, 48. Sammy disappeared into the woods after running up a cinder slope. Despite his passion for life, Sammy was stubborn at times. Also, as a result of having a mild form of autism, he was terrified of loud noises and bright lights. At the time of his disappearance, Sammy stood 4 feet 11 inches tall, weighed 85 pounds, and had short brown hair and brown eyes. The last time he was seen, he was wearing a long-sleeved black and green t-shirt, jeans, a blue coat, and red suede slip-on shoes with rubber soles. While the little boy did have camping experience, he had no formal wilderness survival training given his young age. At around 4 p.m. that day, the Bulkey family had pulled over at a pullout 500 yards east of the Cleetwood Cove parking lot area and were walking north along Rim Drive. Sammy and his father were playing hide-and-seek on a gravel slope, and Sammy saw some yellow that he thought might be gold. Sammy stayed on the slope, refusing to come down, and as darkness approached, his father walked a short distance to their car to return to their Diamond Lake cabin. Kenny Bulkey chased after Sammy, but Sammy stayed at least 50 feet ahead, likely considering it a game. I never caught up with him, his father said, and at that point he disappeared over the top somewhere and I lost him. Within a matter of hours, more than 200 people were combing an area of about 6 square miles or 4,000 acres. Dogs, helicopters, and heat-sensing cameras were used to search for the boy for a week, but he was never found. Authorities said a helicopter crew spotted some tracks, but they turned out to be most likely animal tracks. After that, the search continued intermittently despite heavy snowfalls in the area. 7,000 feet above sea level, the park gets more than 500 inches of snow per year. Although it was unlikely Sammy would have fallen into the lake because of obstacles on the slope, technical climbing crews searched the slopes from the rim of the caldera down to the shoreline. Participating in the search were SAR teams from Jackson, Klamath, and Deschutes counties, National Park Service searchers, and trackers from California, Washington, and Oregon. Mount Hood and Mount Rainier rescue teams were also involved, as well as volunteers consisting of employees from the Bureau of Land Management and the U.S. Forest Service. It seems more than a little odd that a boy of Sammy's age, who was just slightly autistic, would run off into the woods without any reason at all and continue going until he was out of sight and hearing range of his father. Because it was cold, his first instinct, we would think, would be to turn around and return to his dad, especially if he was calling for him, no matter how long he'd been hidden from him. Sadly, no trace was ever found, and Sammy remains missing.
Thank you to Steve Stockton from Among the Missing for another great story of missing people on Spaced Out Radio. If you want more just like that, head on over to youtube.com/Among the Missing, and you can listen to many more just like that for free. From the missing to the mysterious, it is time to bring in Nicole Sakich on the UFO court. Why? Because Courtney Marcassani is on assignment heading to the East Coast for private meetings on UFOs. Let's bring in Nicole.
That is an interplanetary flying space saucer. You have made me very angry. Very angry indeed.
Nicole, thank you so much for joining us tonight. It's always a pleasure to have you filling in for Courtney when she is out on assignment. And we really do appreciate you tuning us on in and joining us tonight. It's been a kind of a quiet week in the UFO world, but you know what? There's always news to talk about, Nicole.
Oh my goodness. It has been quiet, but there's been work being done. That's why it's quiet. The behind the scenes, boots on the ground, traveling the globe, what researchers do sort of work instead of just the talking head sort of work. So I'm proud of the whispers I'm hearing. So, and you had Dan Warren on. What a great guest tonight.
Oh, he's amazing. He's just amazing. You know what I love about Dan is not only is he a really nice guy, okay, that's far and few between in this field, as you know, but he calls it the way it should be, which is he doesn't provide his opinion. He doesn't provide his perspective. He's not trying to influence people to think one way or another. He just puts it out on a daily basis of what the news of the day is, and that's what he goes with, just to update people. And imagine if more of us did that, how much further ahead we would be on the news and keeping up with what's going on properly, rather than all the headaches and drama that we see today.
Right. I was listening while I was waking up and then getting ready to join the show tonight. So you guys hit on some important topics and some interesting deep dive pockets as well. But I liked what you just said about Dan, and what I was thinking about during your discussion and what you just expressed was Dan has this ability to explore this topic and not lead anybody in a direction, but it sort of follows in the footsteps of the greatest in our community that do this. I point out the Von Däniken question all the time. You read any book by Eric Von Däniken or the continuation of the ancient astronaut theorists, and there is like 2 periods in the entire book. The rest is question mark. It's these open-ended thought experiments is how I look at it. And you guys also touched on this influence of disclosure, and you guys left out Giorgio Tsoukalos. Like, I was just like heartbroken a little bit when you talk about a water cooler topic, which Dan Warren has sort of brought ufology to TikTok in this way. There are these parallels. And did he happen to read the chat? Because him and I talk behind the scenes sometime, and I wanted to pay Dan a compliment. He doesn't realize how much of a young gun he is in this situation and what his future might bring, because he reminds me so much of a young Grant Cameron. And I know you and I sometimes have been tasked to write Grant's biography someday, because we both have this kind of perspective on him and dig around into, the younger years of such a legend and icon. And yeah, like down to the jobs they have and the universities that they worked for, and that sort of access to the beyond and the mystery and the government level interest, like, it's all there. It's like, oh, Grant has a repeat.
You know
It's
what?
inspiring.
I think Dan has a long future in ufology as being one of the most loyal and honest voices in this field. And that's the pedestal I put him on. He's too humble to accept that title, but I don't really care. I'm going to call the truth. And I think he is one of the easiest people to break down ufology for those who are brilliant with education and those who are blue collar like myself, who don't understand truly what's going on with everything. But, the one thing that Dan said right at the end, and I know you and I have a lot of conversations about this behind the scenes, and we could talk about it publicly, is he asked me right at the end of the show if I thought that, basically paraphrasing, how much control does the phenomena have, and how much does the government really know about the phenomena? And you and I believe, are quite on the same page with this, that the phenomena is quite godly, if we can use that term. And the phenomena seems to control everything regarding this subject of where the sightings happen, who gets the sightings, who gets to open up, how it happens, and that the phenomena just isn't about UFOs. It's about everything supernatural and paranormal as well.
Right. Well, there is this sort of broader spectrum outside of UFOs. And Dan brought in the consciousness connection right at the end. We wanted to know if our ability to reverse engineer alien reproduction vehicles, produce that sort of technology, kind of gets brought out and shelved and brought out and shelved. And if we've reached a point to where we know it's consciousness connected, but we don't really know what to do with it at this point. And that question right there sort of covers so many avenues in ufology. Like he pointed out earlier, this is such a topic heavy community. There's so many avenues. You can dive in rabbit hole after rabbit hole, or website after website, or archive after archive, and not be able to really get a solid handle on this. You know the symptom of this. The longer you look, the more questions you have and the less answers you get, but the pursuit remains. And that's why it's beautiful when Dan talks about this subject, and it's question after question that drives that thought process. I think the greatest people in our community do that. I think that in and of itself is the truest reflection of the phenomenon at large, that godliness of it. It's cyclical. We know that as experiencers. It kind of gives as you give, and you can only kind of receive what you're ready to be able to handle, or at least work and process your way through. So if you levelize that, like we were talking about the musicians, is that a good thing or a bad thing for them to come into this community? Well, the argument is they might not know as much as people think they should, but that in and of itself is the essence of experiencers and the researchers. It doesn't come down to this government disclosure. It comes down to the experiencers and how they're expressing what they learn from this phenomenon. And musicians are beautiful at that. I pulled out 3 books just so I could talk about them on music and inspiration. And if we get messages throughout music, and if experiencers express their art this way, art, music, paintings, sculpture, these things stand a longer test of time than any talking head on a podium related to politics. You know what I mean?
I
Those
would agree
people come
with
and
you.
go.
My
Art
concern
continues.
Here's my concern, though, and I brought this up with Courtney a couple nights
Mhm.
ago, and I'm curious to get your opinion. I mean, when you go back to the fact that Billy Corgan and Fred Durst are about to start a UFO podcast. I'm conflicted because I think it's great. They're going to bring a whole new genre of subscribers, followers to this topic. What
Yeah.
bothers me about it is, will they give the right information? Because people are going to look at them much like they do Tom DeLonge and think that they are experts. Okay. And I've been in this field 9.5 years. I am nowhere close to being an expert. I'm just at the tip of the iceberg in trying to figure out what is going on. And I think it concerns me, because when you put people on a pedestal like we do with musicians, actors, athletes, we tend to believe them a little bit more, even though they may not know as much information as you think they do. But because of who they are, you believe everything that they tell you. And to me, I think that's a little bit dangerous at this stage of the UFO game. Now, if they would have come out with this podcast, say 7 years ago, when Tom DeLonge came out with the To the Stars Academy, then I think we're making a little bit more progression. But I don't mind anybody talking about it, whether it's these guys or Joe Rogan or Paul Giamatti or, whoever. How are they getting their information? Who is guiding them towards the answers? That's what I want to know.
Right. Well, and I think that's something they need to be prepared for. Like, we prepare anybody that we come in contact with if they want to sort of become public or talk about their experience. Those of us that speak to people like this every day have those conversations. It's like, okay, we'll get ready for the pitfalls. Like, what books have you read? There's always those sort of levelizing conversations, but it's the get ready for the public side of it, because this is an intelligent community. Even though we're told otherwise, or we're told that we're fringe, or that the stigma is lifted, like, not very many of us truly believe that. Yeah, it's becoming more accessible, and you don't have to come out as an experiencer to talk about, like, the science fiction side of ufology, or exploring it through movies and music. And that's the beauty of that. If the pitfalls always fall with the messiahs, like you said, the people we place on pedestals in this. And it's not so much if they're working towards a greater good of the community, but it comes down to if there's like that singular plural message. And I'll talk about Stephen Greer in this instance, because he's loved and hated, but he's also done so much for disclosure throughout that love and hate, and with his community support, the people that are around him. He's the figurehead of all of that, and people have split off over the years when they don't agree with them. But he is a ufology machine. In the same sense, Giorgio Tsoukalos is. And the Ancient Aliens machine is spreading this sort of culture worldwide. So we can celebrate things like that, and also reflect and have these critical questions happen. So when the newbies come on the scene, whether it was around 2017 or 2015 with TTSA, and now To the Stars, is this like a continuation of a trend that Tom started? Tom came in, kind of shared sources, got connected with big players in our community, or big behind the scenes players. Those weren't exclusive to Tom. We're still talking about a closed group. So the new ones on the scene, like Billy Corgan or even Dave Foley, the comedian, are they getting dealt into those government sources? Is that the avenues they're pursuing? Or are they pursuing more like what you and I do, talking to experiencers and seeing what they have to say? Because they disclose in their own way. They talk about how these craft work. They talk about the interactions of the different kinds of beings and how they change, and the messages that come through, whether it's technical or spiritual or political, you know, environmental. There's so many messages over the years, and that's how it updates and continues this pattern of influence. And that's why it's those of us that study the phenomenon say it comes down to the intelligence behind the phenomenon. How did that influence the NASA guy that has the download experiences and is able to create what he does because of it? You know, does he parallel that to an alien? Does he relate that to, you know, is he Catholic? Does he relate that to the Holy Spirit? You know, what does he consider that inspiration at that point? And that's why disclosure from the government is, our government is dangerous. You know, if they come out and say you hear an inspirational voice and we think that might be alien, think of everybody who prays and hears a calling from God. Like, what would that do? You know, those are the ramifications. Like, we would all love disclosure and here's the craft, sports model. You know, Bob Lazar was right. Woo! But the repercussions of that are, am I talking to God? What am I talking to? Am I sharing my consciousness? You know, that sort of thing. So
Oh,
it's
yeah.
fascinating.
We
And
have
that's
two.
why it'll continue to be the mystery. And those on the inside, if they are facing this technology and reverse engineering, and they make these little mini discoveries, but they're so compartmentalized, how do they share that with each other? How do they really discover how those things work until they listen to others that this happens to? You know, the people that say they fly the craft or encounter these pieces and can make them levitate, or the people in our community that can telepathically link with each other and channel or download, however you want to say that. But I had this discussion with Courtney last night when she was here visiting me. You know, those of us that pursue this from a sort of neuroscience angle or a philosophical angle, or we talked a lot about hypnotherapy and psychotherapy and this sort of help that experiencers find on their own. You know, this pushes all of this into a different area than aerospace and weapons and, you know, what our government does, you know, what we expect them to do. If this is spirituality and questions of new emerging physics, you know, that belongs in academia and in universities and in think tanks and, you know, with our best and brightest. And that's not even our current best and brightest. That's our coming up. That's how, you know, this is so layered. It's our children, you know. What are they going to be able to do with these mysteries if we give them access? You know, I think that's what transparency and disclosure is truly about. It's not tell us all the secrets. It's be transparent enough that more people can have access.
And on that note, Nicole, I'm going to get you to hold on right there. Nicole Sackage filling in for Courtney Marcassani on UFO Court. Courtney's on assignment. Final half hour of Spaced Out Radio
This
continues
is
after this.
Spaced Out Radio and your host, Dave Scott.
That's literally one of the greatest guitar solos I've ever heard. Melts me every time.
I was going to share my most recent favorite little musician fun fact. Because, you know, Grant and I, and just myself personally, dove into this whole musician, artist sort of genre. And everybody has their generation of music that speaks to them a little bit and what comes out new, like while they're growing up and whether they like it or hate it. Well, I was always like, what is this Kurt Cobain Nirvana influence that swept over my generation? And then like years later, you know, you find out these little snidbits and tales So there's index after index and 3 different books here of different musicians and artists that have had their encounters and the songs that have come out from it. So we also know Nirvana sort of changed rock in the 90s, and that Kurt Cobain was found dead, right? It's tragic. It's terrible. Well, he was wearing a t-shirt by another band that influenced him and the sort of sound that Nirvana had or created. And that band was called Half Japanese. And it's made of 2 brothers, David Fair and I always forget the other brother, but not only are they musicians, but they also create and write books, and they work with children, even children's music. But one of the things that they were known for is that music can be created from any sort of like noise or sound. So a lot of their stuff sounds really like rough because it's not necessarily instruments, or it's instruments played incorrectly even. And it's just a very odd sound. And then, so if you go back and revisit their music, you can hear like the precursors of Nirvana in it. And then you dive into their little stories, like what happens on the road or what influenced them. And I came across this book, and he was a guest on My Alien Life, which was the first podcast I ever did before coming on Space Out Radio. And so David Fair's a guest being interviewed, and he has this book, and it's called Uninvited Future Observers, UFO.
Mm.
And I, of course, wrote in and was like, blah, 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 ask him this question. Da, da, da. He sent me a book. He signed it and sent me the book. And it said, Nicole, best wishes, past, present, and future, David Fair. So this kind of sent me, I was like, oh my God, this is a synchronicity. Because, I kind of follow this. UFOs are sort of this future time travel element to it. Our friend Masters, the extraterrestrials. I love that he's changing the lingo to include time, temporal. That's the thing that's like scaring physicists right now too, is like, is this consciousness experience some sort of like temporal hacking? Is our consciousness getting hacked, or is it agreed upon? Like this link that people talk about. So he wrote this wonderful book. He looks at UFOs as like a uninvited future observer sort of thing going on, and, gives his little experiences and his rundown on why he thinks that way. So I just like those little musical things. Like, his music was from the 70s and early 80s, a little before mine and unknown, but he also influenced one of the greatest bands of my generation. And now people are starting to cover Nirvana songs. And who else spun out from Nirvana? And how does that influence keep going? Another one from your neck of the woods is Stevie Nicks, and all her like I'm a witch talk or exploring that element, that comes through in her music. And think of how like Miley Cyrus is now covering Stevie Nicks music. Like, not that every, garage band under the sun hasn't, but just that sort of influence that Miley Cyrus has. And I believe she's one of these newer ones that has had a UFO sighting. Was it her?
Yes.
Yeah, I think it's Miley. So
Yeah.
what will come out of her with this? And Lady Gaga's interest in this. Just, look at what she did for the LGBTQ community. What could her influence do for ufology?
Katy Perry.
Same with Billy Corgan and yeah. So
I agree.
So let's be nice until they really fork it up. Let's be nice.
All right, we got 20 seconds left. Thank you to Android, A Brock ×2, Aloha Dave, Stephen, T-Bone ×2, and Deborah Rooney for the super chats. Greatly appreciate the love and support. And here we go, everybody. I love the Texas Hippie Coalition, by the way.
I don't even know what that is.
Here we go with the final half hour of Spaced Out Radio tonight. Nicole Sackage filling in for Courtney Marcassani, who is on assignment on the UFO court. Before we bring Nicole back on, I want to remind all of you that you can check out all of our archives for free at any major podcast network or on YouTube at youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio. Our website, spacedoutradio.com. We have a plethora of features for you. Rock out to Bumblefoot, read the Newswire, check out our swag as well. Follow us on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio, Instagram at Spaced Out Radio Show, and on Patreon in the Space Travelers Club. Brandon Coast making a comment in our chat room earlier, just before we go to break, about the band, the heavy metal band Texas Hippie Coalition. Brandon, that was my warm-up music before tonight's show. Love it. A little pissed off and mad about it. That really gets you going. Oh, love the Texas Hippie Coalition. Great band. Great band. Big Daddy Rich. Great singer. All right, Nicole, we bring you back in here, because you brought up something during the break that I think we need to talk about. And I think this is becoming more of a prevalent conversation. Once just a thought and a theory from John Teeter to Andrew Bashago and many others, time travel. There seems to be a lot of time travel speaking engagements now. People thinking that the extraterrestrials are not extraterrestrial at all. But Michael Masters, great doctor from Montana Tech University, who believes that the ETs that we are seeing today and encountering are actually from our future. And this seems to be a big part of the UFO conversation now, Nicole.
I would say I don't think it's a big part of the UFO conversation at large yet. That right now is still in this like tangible area, of can they get here from there, in the known ways, which is part of this time travel conversation. Do we have to advance our understanding of science and physics and those spin-off areas of our existence today before we can truly understand the phenomenon at large and what we're dealing with? And that's where these theories that get postulated of, is it extraterrestrial? Is it multidimensional? Is it ultra-terrestrial? Is it extraterrestrial? So extraterrestrial, ultra, and multidimensional all sort of encompass this element of time travel. So then where do you want to go with this? So, I mean, like you brought up Andrew Basago, and that speaks to the
Jump rooms.
The jump rooms and the 23 and back and the secret space program or super soldiers. How do you want to look at that? Like, there's a lot of conspiracy and mythology, like modern mythology built in around all of that right now, going back to like Tompkins and, who was the other really young one? That's very controversial. That was building the models of crafts, like sort of like Tompkins. But anyways, I'll think of his name later. But then we bring in like the influence of the great ones, Tesla, and the elements of time travel in his work or how it's been expanded upon. And then who do I always bug you with the time travelers? I'm like, you need to talk to this professor, bring him on. He works in this element and he's built this. And then there's the mysterious death ones or the mystery ones, like Dr. Lee. Like what happened to her? And is she still alive? Did she go back to China? Like, is she under an alias now? Does her work continue? Where do those patents go? The biggest controversial one right now is how certain pillars in our community have talked about deaths. Even like Grush spoke about possible deaths being related to this community, and then erupted the story of Amy. And I'm not going to say her last name because I still think it's too controversial. She's got a father out there. So until questions like that surround these people are answered, and the work that they do, whether it's aerospace work, weapons, or time travel. So then recently, and I'm not going to say this person's name either, there's been another death, somebody who's linked to time travel and an official NASA US Air Force like joint study into the actual plausibility of time travel, government funded time travel study. Scientist dead. That's heavy, when we're talking about these elements. And they come up all throughout ufology and cases, back to the beginning of, missing time and time dilation. And I was shown the future, or, I talked with this being, we're going to have tablets in the future, but they didn't know what to call tablets, just all this strange, high strangeness that comes along with this. So, dun, dun, dun.
Time travel is one of those subjects where I think every single person on this planet has an interest in.
Right.
I really do believe that. I know, I remember the old Art Bell shows where he was talking about John Teeter, and John Teeter actually allegedly called in the time traveler from 20.
Yeah. I always forget his name, Teeter. And
Yeah.
then what was the one when I was younger? And then even Andrew Basago, like you said. And, then enters the era of Photoshop, like, the ones that are Photoshopped into like Lincoln's State of the Union address or whatever. And, it's odd. And then we bring in like the Mandela effect and, the changes. Is that public perception changes, or is it like the Matrix being rewritten, or did a timeline get absorbed into another one? And, a current expression of this is like the Marvel universe. It's like there is these like cultural reflections of everybody thinking about this at large, or what it could mean, like even down to like cryogenics and, what Elon Musk is doing right now. Like, are we going to be able to transfer our consciousness? What just came out? 3-body problem. They shot a brain into space to go meet with aliens.
Oh my.
Just a brain, knowing that the aliens could reproduce the body around the consciousness and the brain. And I'm not giving away too big of a like sneaker on that one, but I'm not going to say it doesn't end how you think it's going to. So
Do you think then that we do currently have human time travelers visiting here right now?
you hear that reflected in the messages and the conversations that people have. Like, where are you from? Well, it's not what you think. Are you an angel? Well, you might look at me that way. Are you an alien? Well, that's probably the word you want to use for it. Like, do you come from the future? Like, your future or mine? It's always the sort of thing to make you think until you get your knowing, like, oh my God, that was so profound. I know it all at once. I understand. And then you forget. But you're left with the knowing. You're like, this feels right. And so do you pursue that? So I love those moments, what really, and that's more reflective of my personal experiences than you saying you've got aliens. Remember how offended I was when I first shared one of my personal stories with you, and you're like, "You got aliens." I was like,
You were very angry with me, when that happened. But, I guess with time travel, that's one of the ones. There's two things I want to believe. I want to believe time travel is real, number one, and immortals. I know this is getting way off topic from the UFO report, but I don't really care. It's my show. So, but time travelers and immortals. are the two topics that I think are just fascinating to me. Absolutely fascinating.
Right. Well, they go hand in hand, you know, I think. Can you achieve what are the various ways that you could theorize about how to achieve immortality? Or what does immortality mean to you? Does that mean living forever? Or does it mean like a continuation, like a legacy, like a part of you living on? Is it your consciousness? That's a question raised right now. It's like, is our consciousness an endless stream and a continuation? Or is it arise new, brand new, like a baby with every single one of us, and not able to recognize anything at the outside world. Like,
Well, if my beliefs are true, in the next 30 years, both John Alexander and Hal Puthoff will still be alive talking about the UFO story, because I believe
don't,
they're reals. I
don't
totally
you
believe
have, like, okay, so one of my favorite sci-fi cartoons, like, I know everybody's stuck on Rick and Morty right now, but mine has always been Futurama. And I love that concept of the heads in the jars that are just kind of like in our future. And yeah, and cryogenics. Like their main character was like cryogenically frozen and brought into the future and lives in that present. But then there's objects from the past, like people's cryogenically frozen heads in the future. It's like, why not the bodies? Like, or they have robot bodies, or androids, even with Star Wars and Star Trek and all that. Like, I want my Rosie bot from the Jetsons. Like, bring on that chick, let her cook and clean. Let's do that.
who doesn't want a Rosie bot.
But right now, like, okay, so the modern reflection of what's going on in our right now with like sentient AI bots or cyborgs or is AI the emerging AI? Are they going to be their own consciousness? Are they sentient? When's the singularity? Has it already happened and then we're being lied to? Like, you want to talk about a community that's more ferocious than ufology? Like, dive into AI land. Like, geez, like, no, thank you.
Well, just a reminder to you that July 31st of this year, because you brought up Rosie, George Jetson will be 2.
Wow. And see, that's what I mean. Like, where I really started diving into the time travel element of this is my love for Rendlesham Forest case. And like, as soon as you kind of figure out that the craft of unknown origin is considered a time craft, and then overlay that with other possible UFOs, like, are they all time craft? Like, does that warp bubble manipulate things? Like, it's that element. But yeah, and then to know the mystery that surrounds the code within the code of Rendlesham Forest and how that is still unfolding now. Like our most modern topographical overlays of all those coordination points drawn from the binary code get more refined. From 1980, that code was given in 1980. And so now in 2024, a satellite image of a location refines that math to make that message more clear. It never changes, like, just more of the message comes out. And yeah, that message is allegedly coming from 8100. How would they know to send these crafts back to points in our history and our time if it wasn't somehow related to humanity itself? How would something from an outside perspective, unless it's this interconnected, shared consciousness, tap in, you can, see things throughout all space and time, all versions of you, if that's true. So, are these wormholes really wormholes that we physically go through, or are they your consciousness?
George Jetson has appeared in our chat room saying, I'm only 2? Wah. you
And
know?
look, he's already typing on the internet and interacting with adults. Like, there you go.
Brilliant. Absolutely brilliant. And, you know, I think though that the technology that we are seeing, that we hear of, that we can use our imaginations on, I would love to see some of this exposed through this whole UFO point. I don't know how much actually will, but I'm very curious to see over the next, say, 10 years what's going to come out.
Well, that's where like our speculation and imagination can run wild a little bit, right? Like we've heard whispers of what sort of tech that Corso may or may not have pushed out to those he deemed worthy or those he knew could maybe process what they were even looking at, you know? And if those people have turned into titans of their industry, and what have they cranked out? You know, we always hear the whispers of like there was fiber optic-ish things found at the Roswell crash. Well, we know the history of fiber optics and how we developed it. But did that those fiber optics, were they more advanced? Did they give us some inspirational cues, or, you know, did they operate, did they function better? You know, it's just like little questions like that. It's not that did we get fiber optics from aliens, you know? And that's just one that's blown out of the water all the time. But then okay, you guys touched on this earlier too. Like we've all seen the UFO crafts or pictures of the bigger one and these orbs or another one that joins a mothership, and we relate that. Okay, so what if we saw that in the 1960s and 70s, and now how is that reflected? Are we producing drone swarm technology drones to mimic what we've seen or what was inspired by motherships and orbs joining them? You know, we have these remote controlled vehicles that can fly along with piloted vehicles, release many vehicles to do different tasks, all coordinated at the same time. Does that not sound like a UFO experience that people have witnessed? Like, we can do that.
100%. I agree with you on that.
So
You
yeah,
know, we got just over 3 minutes to go here on Spaced Out Radio tonight. Nicole Sackage filling in for Courtney Marcassani, pardon me, as she is on assignment heading back to Washington, D.C. What an assignment it is.
my gosh. Like, honestly, like, she stayed about 6 hours longer than we sort of initially intended her staying. And it's just like she and I were able, it's always something special when you can swap like the physical hard copy information stuff instead of the shooting a text or the email, or, you know, work on this little part and here's this little part. It's like Courtney saw my madness. She saw the actual weird desk, like the notebooks, the lists of what I outline and working on. And, you know, she and I have our own little projects too. We're in cahoots more than just doing the UFO report and helping each other and trying to source information or things like that. But yeah, it's wonderful. And yeah, we're trying to help and collaborate a few other people. It's not just always whistleblowers, but that's an exciting piece of her puzzle right now. So
Very exciting. I want to ask you one quick question here before we go, because you mentioned Rendlesham Forest. Why do you think that we don't have those type of evidentiary cases in ufology anymore? Whether it's Rendlesham or Stefan Mikulik at the Falcon Lake incident, Travis Walton type of incidents, we don't seem to have those anymore.
don't you think maybe that's part of like the backlash though of that? Yeah, I think when I talk to experiencers at large, most of them don't want to come forward yet. And if they are linked to the military, like you and Dan pointed out, they still have a lot to risk or a lot to lose. Like I think about Jim Peniston didn't come forward until he was out, you know. So the ones that are in might still be having experiences like that. But then from the civilian angle, you know, like you and I and like even the police officers that track these things with civilians in areas, like they still get ignored. Those cases get, you know, just shuffled in, or, you know, like around here, a bunch of us kind of funnel things around Scott Air Force Base, and they give us the kind of the lingo that these are unauthorized civilian drones. But then so you have like county officers, state troopers, local city police following these things, and they can't find the unauthorized civilians. So, you know, there is like this sort of pushback, and like, how do you handle these situations? And like, we talk about it at the upper government level of them not sharing information and playing nice with each other. Well, that also shakes down to like EMS or police services and your local communities too. Like,
Nicole, I got to cut it off right there because it is that time to say goodnight. Thank you for filling into court for Courtney. As we say hello to Mr. Ron Bumblefoot Thal, rocking in the background with Little Brother is watching. Bumblefoot is the official music of Spaced Out Radio, rocking us in and out of every single show. Get your horns up for the guitar god himself. Special thanks to everybody listening in at work, at home, in your cars, wherever you may be. Thank you to everyone in our chat rooms tonight. YouTube, Twitch, LGAB, Facebook, Spreaker, LinkedIn, the Space Travelers Club, and on X at hashtag Spaced Out Radio. Remember, this show is copyright by Spaced Out Radio and SOR Media Ventures Limited. Thank you so much for choosing to share your evening with us, because together, my friends,
we're watching.
We own the night. Mr. Bumblefoot, we need a favor. We need you to take us home. Yes, the Woo train has docked for the night, but soon, my friends, we shall ride again. Your seats are always available. Your tickets never expire. And if you want to bring a friend, we've got room for them too. Good night. All right.
I missed the We Own the Night.
Totally did.
I'm sorry. I thought this was gonna be at AMA, and then we just had topics came up, so I was answering questions that were sent in privately to me.
Now I'm pissed off and mad about it. No, I'm kidding. That's just a Texas Hippie Coalition song.
We own the night.
Pissed off and mad about it. So let me scream and shout it. Pissed off and mad the fuck about it. Oh, yeah.
My favorite experience or song right now is by the band I was talking about, Half Japanese. And it's not necessarily about a UFO experience, but it speaks to me in my follow the music messages and synchronicities. And that's their song that's called Nicole Said So.
Oh, really?
Oh, Nicole. Oh, it's called Nicole Told Me. And then the next line is, and I found out that she was right. I'm like, yep, Nicole told me, and I found out that she was right. A lot of people, I think that sometimes. It's a gift. So I'm going to work in a couple hours. What are you doing? Sleeping?
I'm going to work in 10 hours.
Nice.
Yep.
Nice. It's good for you.
Yep.
Working on a Saturday.
Yep.
So yeah, Courtney and I had some excellent Mexican food. We shared a picture of a delightful cocktail. Got back to my house, continued to swap our information and files and walk through some things, and we gave ourselves a lot of homework, actually, just with some pieces that we put together, and it's always good to have FaceTime and discuss these things.
I'm putting the link in chat for Pissed Off and Mad About It by the Texas Hippie Coalition. Great song.
Oh, nice.
Lots of heavy guitar. Want to see something funny? Watch my hair explode. Oh, hold on. It's like exploding today.
Is that it?
That's it.
I'm not impressed. I expected more explosions.
Yeah, that didn't go as planned.
Too funny.
Hi, Peppa H.
You know what we didn't do tonight, or what you and Dan Warren didn't do tonight? You didn't wave to all the government agencies tuning in, or all our spy guys.
Yeah, I forgot. Oh, they're listening in. They're hanging out. Some in the chat room, some not.
Hey, how do you say, Andrew? Do you say Basagio or Basagio or Basago? I know that's one. It's a source of contention with some of our followers. Say it again.
Bashago.
There's a Shago. It's not a EO. Or yeah. Who else do I say is Courtney always says Sean Kilpatrick.
I know. I think
instead of Kirkpatrick.
That's why I don't correct her, because that's her thing.
I know. Well, it was a snarky thing when he was first came out with the first report. I think it's like Kilpatrick. He's trying to kill ufology, Kilpatrick, and it's sort of continued in some circles, like calling Tom DeLong, Tom
Schlong.
Schlong.
I hate that one. I know where that resonated.
I don't like it either. It reminds me of middle school.
Yeah. Jacques Valet, how are you? Good to see you from Norway.
I need his email. What else?
I don't know. Where do you want to go?
Well, we covered the music part. I forgot about the other notes that I kind of mental notes from you and Dan.
Hold on a second. I sang Deidre happy birthday yesterday. And then she comes back with, "You have quite the chia head of hair, Dave." Wow. Just a 1-2 punch to the solar plexus there. Teasing.
It's all right. You have to just take it all as compliments.
Oh, yeah. It was a compliment. I know she meant it with love.
Chia grows really fast and really thick and luxuriously.
What the hell is chia? Is that a plant?
Well, yeah. Well, they got the chia pets, but then it's the same stuff. Like if you make a chai latte, it's the chai seed, I think. And yeah, it grows the little sprouts. You can eat them too. They're delicious and healthy. Chia. Don't put the seeds down your garbage disposal. You'll grow a chia pet in your own garbage disposal. Right. That's my warning. Yep. How many parents didn't know that when they had a chia pet for their kid in the 90s? Easter's coming up.
It's like fighting fish, the beta fish. We didn't have one of those.
I love those.
I do too. We still have one.
I had 7 versions of one for William.
Version 2.
Man, you want to talk about life extension or immortality or the immortals? Spiky the fish.
Right?
He had a long life. Yep.
I've been thinking about getting a fish tank again. There's something relaxing about a fish tank.
Yet you say that, yet you're gonna be eaten by megalodon one day if you step in the ocean.
Yep.
How do you find serenity in that, Dave? Because you've contained it in your own little box.
What, that I'm gonna be eaten by a megalodon?
Yeah, so your fear is you're gonna get eaten by megalodon if you go in the ocean.
Buddy, we'll be right back after this. 1 second.
With your host, Dave Scott.
There it is. All right. Sorry about that.
So you think getting an aquarium would be very relaxing. So you've contained the ocean and the megalodon, and you find that relaxing.
I want to get a couple of nice little turtles. Okay. Of those red belly turtles.
Mm-hmm.
I want to get a couple of fire belly toads and some fish. That's it. That's all I want. Just some small little fish, the neons and all that kind of stuff. I like those.
Those are fun. Yeah. So you don't want to get like a piranha or an electric eel, like
nothing.
Honestly, nothing. I think for Spaced Out Radio Fan Party 2025 or 2026, that should include a tropical location with scuba diving so you can face your megalodon fear.
No.
Yes. No. Yes.
Gee, you know, what a jerk this guy is. Dave is scared of sharks, but will likely be eaten by something out of the ordinary, like a halibut or grouper.
A giant one, though, like from outer space. It's going to be like an outer space guppy comes and eats Dave, abducts him into another dimension by swallowing him.
Mm-hmm. Keep going, sweets. Keep going. I'm going to take a pair of scissors to that chin hair of yours, and I'm going to frame it on the wall behind me. That's right. That's right. I found one of the funniest redneck sites on Facebook that I have ever seen yesterday. I was going through my reels yesterday because I was bored, and all of a sudden there was some real redneck stuff on my feed, and I just killed myself laughing. Yep. Nicole, you would have a crush on the guy who calls himself Alpha.
And what are we talking about?
This real redneck YouTube channel.
Oh, so thanks. I'll have the crush on the alpha redneck. Is that what you're saying? Like is the end time travel. That's what makes it or breaks it.
Right?
Dave, it's like you've pointed out why I'm single. There's so many alpha rednecks around. What is the girl? How could a girl choose?
Oh, I almost sent you the link last night to it. It's called what's it called? Hold on. I'll find it here.
You know, one of my favorite characters in Star Trek that I kind of have a sci-fi crush on, always surprises people, but it's the Doctor from Star Trek Discovery. But he's a hologram. And he's not very good looking, but I don't know. The Doctor did it for me.
And here I would thought you said the Doctor on Grey's Anatomy, McDreamy.
Well, that's in real life, not in sci-fi fantasy.
Okay, I'm going to put the link up here for anybody who wants to see this. This is the Facebook page that these rednecks have. and I'm still trying to break it all down. I don't really understand it, but scroll past the Easter pictures, and then it gets funny after that. It's called Soccer Balls with a Z instead of an S 55. There's the link. Have some fun with that, people. I did come across something really cool that I'm about to go down a 2-year rabbit hole with. It's what did I hold on? Has anybody heard of Project 863? Apparently there's this YouTube channel that these guys, they found a set of keys and then everything is tying. It almost gets like Hellier in a way, but not in a paranormal way.
Ugh, are we talking about like reality podcasting, scripted reality podcasting?
It's not a podcast though. That's the thing.
You know what I'm trying to say. Scripted.
I don't know.
reality.
Let me go down the rabbit hole first and see what I think of it.
I'm gonna blame the Blair Witch Project right now.
I like the Blair Witch Project. It scared me.
Oh, I know, but and rightly so for the reasons that made it brilliant. And now I'm just saying, like, it's kind of old school now, Dave. We're going to see new reboot versions of that. Generation, what are we on? Alpha, beta.
I want to know how many people are checking out that link I just put in right now. Oh, Tim Mothman and your goatee. Just go for it. Go down the rabbit hole, man. Go down the redneck rabbit hole. It's awesome.
You keep seeing redneck rabbit hole, and I'm thinking of the Rocket City rednecks.
What the hell are the Rocket City rednecks?
All the rocket scientists that live in Huntsville, because they're so like honky, they call themselves the Rocket City rednecks.
Hold on 1 second.
Good old Southern honky.
Good. All right. I don't know. You know, something else that's been popping up in my reels lately is these roller skating people. Like not
roller derby?
No, not roller derby, but these people skating around doing all these dance moves while they're skating, like total like 70s stuff, man.
Oh, I know what you're talking about. Like the flow dancing.
Yes.
Like they're sliding. Yeah. Those aren't rollers, dude. They're that fucking smooth. And yeah, they're redoing like a lot of the Bee Gees songs and dancing to it. Like, oh, what were the pop-up dancers that were so fun there for a while?
I don't know, but it's
Flash
weird.
mob style, like that sort of stuff. Now everybody just gets annoyed. It's like there's a pretty fountain and people are going to dance in front of it, or somebody's like, "You're in my shot." Like everybody's like, you can't just walk around anywhere. It's like you're always in somebody's shot.
Roller disco. Thank you, Jules and Pat Leal. Castle Dude says, hold on. Castle Dude says, I just went down the redneck rabbit hole. Deidre's like, oh dear Dave, I went there and it was uncomfortable. Vanessa, and you'll get your asses kicked. I know what that was like. All right. That's hilarious.
You know, the most famous Rocket City redneck right now is probably Travis Taylor. But then I would even venture to say that, I mean, Bob McGuire didn't grow up there, but he wears those coveralls. He's adopted the Rocket City redneck ways of Alabama and the Huntsville area.
Data's like, you can't unsee that. I know you can't unsee that. I'm just absolutely enthralled. Alpha, Beta, Dead Mother, Delta. I don't get it.
I'm going to leave that alone. You guys can share in that mystery I'll wait for the next cycle on that one.
Oh my gosh.
What's your favorite time travel movie? And don't say Back to the Future with Marty McFly and Jack Sarfati. I mean, Doc Brown. Mine's a love. It's the only rom-com that I like. There's two.
I would say my favorite is Flight of the Navigator.
Oh, okay. That's a good one.
Yeah.
My first one from my childhood is Peggy Sue Got Married. And then my newer, most recent rom-com one is I forget the actors in it even, but it's called About Time. And it's got some lovely music in it that, follow the music. Ben Folds writes a lovely song for that. Yep, gets me in the heart.
Me too, man.
Mm-hmm. So yeah, everybody go watch Peggy Sue Got Married with Kathleen Turner and Nicolas Cage. And then go find your crazy Masonic temple grandpa. It's like a master mason, and see if he can send you back to high school.
Right?
Your life. But then you'll just wake up because you really just had a heart attack and it was a profound dream. Or was it? Would you go back in time if it meant that your kids might not be born? That's what always gets every parent. It's like, oh, what if I mess up my kid? Not having my own kid, that's what gets you.
If it meant not having my children, no. But I can honestly say, and I've told my partner this, that if a UFO landed in our backyard and I
Again.
was asked to go on, I would go on. And if they don't bring me back, you get everything anyways. But I would be really, really tempted to walk on that craft. That's the brave side of me saying that. Okay. But had a
Dave,
good.
what if that craft was shaped like a giant megalodon and it just opened its mouth? Would you be brave enough to walk in the megalodon's mouth?
No.
There you
Not
go.
quite.
That's going to be your test, buddy.
No. No.
Talk to Sammy Moe about that. She'll help you
I
process through it.
did talk to Sammy Moe earlier today, and she had actually quite an ominous message that that the ETs are slowing down their contact right now.
She's not the only one that's said that recently.
Yeah, she said that she has only had, usually she gets every couple day encounters. She's only had 6 encounters all year so far. And that apparently, because we're such on a brink of perpetual war here with what's happening in the world, that apparently the ETs are like, screw this, we're not being a part of this. We're not going to be taking a chance of losing our people on here. And they are getting off the planet for right now. And they are doing their check-ins, but they aren't communicating as much as they previously had.
See, I think the people that receive these messages, there is sort of like a similarity to what comes through or what comes out, when you receive downloads or channel information, however you look at it. But yeah, there are those parallels of like, is this happening right now? Is it like a ripple effect of, what's to come? Or, like, well, some people maybe that relate it more to like a precog thing. I've heard them kind of saying they're reaching like a closer point to our future that they can't really see past because so much stuff is kind of in fluctuation, I guess is one way to look at it.
Yeah.
And like, saying that the brink of world war or, all that stuff. I think that is where like your personal intuition guides you into thinking this or influencing that, because nobody ever has that collective, like, this is the end, the bad message. It's always, how I said, oh, it's that, but it's not really that. That might be what you need to process that right now. That might be how you need to understand it, It's tricky. That's where people talk about the trickster element, like being at play. Is it actual like, ha ha ha, I'm gonna fool? Like, I don't know. Or if it's just like this speak in riddle, sort of like Yoda element.
I hear you.
Mhm.
I hear you. Well, Nicole, it's that time of the night to say goodnight to everybody.
It is. Good night, fellow space travelers.
Good night, everybody. Don't forget Sweet Robbie G on Saturday night. There's going to be a replay on Sunday as it is Easter weekend. So we are going to call it or enjoy your night. I'll be back on Monday, kicking off the new month with Max Hawthorne. We're going to talk about ghostly evidence. Ghostly evidence.
Ooh.
There you go.
Spooky.
Thank you tonight to Deb Varuni, T-Bone ×2, Aloha Dave, A Brock ×2, Stephen, and Android for the super chats. Good night, Nicole Sackich.
Good night, Dave Scott. I'll fill in for Courtney anytime.
Have a good weekend, everybody.
Stay healthy, my friend.
You too.
If you need bail money, give me a call.
Always, Dad. Take care.
You too.